What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Still a little baseball left in this season. Hopefully you guys are excited for tonight's 11 gamer. I'm not. FanDuel not doing us any favors at all. Tiny prize pools again. They're just throwing money, I guess, into the NFL contest for tonight. They doubled the prize pool from last night's single game prize contest, so I guess that's a plus. But I'm not even going to play this one on FanDuel. Despite it being an interesting slate, there's just not enough on the table for what they're asking for the buy-ins, in my opinion. So I don't really like the FanDuel contest. I'm too lazy to jump over and put a full slate's worth of entry fees into DK. And we've got the football game to deal with anyway. So another night off for baseball for me, but we're going to break down the entire slate. We're going game by game as usual. It's a very interesting slate. A lot of pitching available on this one. Really deep pitching slate. So I'm looking forward to getting into it. We're going to do a football show later on, 6:45. I just threw up the schedule, scheduled the show through the app, whatever. So 6:45 is going to be the start time for that. Going to fly through the baseball slate. Not fly through, but we'll take a good look at it. But we're going to try and make good time, and then we're going to try and, I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes, something like that for the football show. It's just one game, several plays on each side to talk about. We'll talk about some lineup construction. Since I'll be running lineups during the show, I might end up showing like some of the sorting table that I use or something like that, just to shake things up, see how I do that. Talk about eliminating lineups with high probability of being duped. We'll get into all that stuff. Lone Wolf says I say run one lineup. Yeah, I'll throw one in. Can't not play. I flat didn't play any baseball yesterday. Hopefully somebody out there did well. I did throw up the rankings and the home run picks and stuff yesterday morning. Kind of couldn't honestly tell you one thing that was on that slate. I was in such a haze after 2 all-nighters, getting football ready, that marathon football show. So I don't remember anything about what was in that slate. I punched that up at like 8 o'clock yesterday morning, and I made it through to lock. But that's why I didn't jump on yesterday morning. I was just I was pretty shot. And then I just couldn't rally for the to do a show for the single game slate last night, fortunately, because man was that ugly. Did you guys play that single game football slate last night? Did you make the mistake of rostering just anyone from the Giants? Trey says, I have no idea what's going on today in baseball, but let's get it. I got a good idea what's going on. I did spend some time with the slate, went through all the pitching, and put together the model and everything, of course. So we've got everything here. We got everything to talk about. Let's say hi, Salty Old Man's here. Best part of being a DFS DGen is that I get to take all my MLB and NHL winnings through the year and just throw them back into the NFL. Good times. I had a good first weekend. I had profited a few $100 in the NFL main slate. I entered the main NFL contest, and then I entered a handful of single entry ones, and then I used that single entry in a couple of the higher dollar, low total entries where I just, they have 10 max or 16 or whatever it is. I just throw one into those usually. So I used it in that. Cash with that one. It was a pretty good lineup. It had, I ended up using all 3 of my prime value receivers. So it had Nakua. It had the kid from the Bucks, Palmer, I want to say, as a run back to a Minnesota stack. So everything value-wise hit nicely. And it cashed. It was a decent lineup, but I actually dropped it in the Discord because I thought it was an interesting one to look at. Because had Kirk Cousins not fumbled the ball 2 times, he actually had a really good game. He would have probably thrown another touchdown pass. He was at 330 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jefferson had a pretty decent game, and Hawkinson had a pretty decent game. So I had those guys double stacked with Cousins in that lineup, but that could have been like that much better. And then I had Derrick Henry in the running back spot. That could have been that much better. But had I followed my projections and gone with Aaron Jones in that spot, saved some money, I might have had a little bit more money to shake things up in paying for a better D. I had Washington in that lineup, and it scored 11. I don't know if there was a higher, what the highest scoring defense of the day was. But I also could have used that money. I had the third wide receiver in that one was the kid from the Packers, the kid that was the WR3. He ended up putting up like 5-7 fantasy points. But I could have, I think, if I had gone to Aaron Jones, maybe paid less at defense, I probably could have gotten that spot to Brandon Ayuk, who we talked about and I loved. And that was what limited my profit on the day was I didn't end up with enough Brandon Ayuk after talking about him and raving about him. He had that monster day. So that would have been really nice to have. Had a little to it, not quite as much as I would have necessarily wanted to get to. But I was really happy with my lineups, happy with my day. We had a good victory that got shouted out. It was, oops, I'm in the baseball channel. That's why I can't find it. A lot going on in the Discord. The hell is it? Could be Travis. Our guy could be Travis. Binked the Minimax, or one of the Minimaxes. I don't know. I assume they ran a couple. But pretty solid $10,000 win for our pal Travis. Gave us a little credit for the Tua play. Had some other stuff that we talked about for sure in that lineup. But, his lineup build for sure. I'm not taking the credit. But shouted it out in the Discord and just love seeing it. So that was great. Solid week one. Hopefully everybody else out there had a pretty solid week one or got to some of those plays and at least had some competitive lineups. We'll be doing it again this week. We're definitely not doing that same Saturday marathon show. I'll do something Saturday night. It was fun to do a show, but it's probably going to be more like an hour instead of 4 hours. If you were with us for the full 4 hours on Saturday, you rock. That was a little over the top. Somebody replied to me on Twitter. They said 4 hours. Was there a big ship and drowning Leonardo DiCaprio involved? Something like that. I'm paraphrasing the tweet, but found it amusing. Dennis, ex-Cubs fan, jumped in the Discord and he said, if you started Terry's Saturday football show and the Lord of the Rings Return of the King extended cut at the exact same time, when Frodo drops the ring in the lava at the end of the movie, or near the end of the movie, that's exactly when Terry's show ended. I didn't go back and check that, but it's probably pretty close. That was a 4 hour and 10-minute movie. Anyway, let's get into this baseball slate. I did promise myself that I was going to try and make some good time here, and we do have a lot to talk about. Tizzlemain says, howdy, Terry. Marco with Born Stack got me 195 on DK. Wish I had Arizona D with that line. Hey, take the profit, though. That's nice. Arizona was the highest scoring defense with 19 points. Thanks, Power. Appreciate that. Dallas was highest scoring. Shut up, Jake. Yeah, we know Dallas was the highest scoring D. Yeah, that was a mess for my Giants last night. If we had gotten on the show, you certainly would have heard me talk about how much I hate Daniel Jones and how I don't think he's a good quarterback at all. I've been talking about that for 2 years, saying that I was hoping they wouldn't re-sign him, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, that was not a good game by Danny Dimes. Not that he had any time to throw. I just don't understand why people were expecting the Giants to be good this season. I was arguing with my friends, not arguing, but talking to my friends by text last night. Just like, why did you guys think this was going to be a good team? I didn't get it. But I didn't expect them to put up a 0. I didn't expect the Dallas defense to have the best defensive game in years. There's another tweet I saw was just so many of the things that the Giants did. Giving up a pick six, a fumble, a block kick return for a touchdown, getting beat 40-0. There was like a series of like 6 bullet points. And it was no team had ever done that in the same season in NFL history, let alone the same game. Just setting a record for ineptitude. So bad. EB says that Nakua pick worked out. Yep, buddy. That was a good one. I didn't end up putting him in my lineup that for the week one for season long in the league, the Dynasty League where I took him. I wasn't expecting him to put up that big a game. Otherwise, obviously, I would have. And I have several like good veteran wideouts. So I didn't do quite as well as I could have in that one. But yeah, I'm excited about having that kid on that roster, not having to try and get him in waivers. And I think it's going to be, at least while Cup is out, going to be kind of a focal point. And he's obviously proven himself. It's going to be a good one. We'll try and find those picks week by week. There's going to be, it's going to be totally different this week. Now, the mystery has been uncovered for a lot of those things where it was like, well, the coach is saying he's third on the depth chart, but I kind of think maybe not Nakua, but some of the other guys. So we're going to have to go through it all again and get into it. But yeah, hopefully week by week we uncover at least a few of those. But let's get into this baseball slate. Po Degen's here. Po Degen says, wake and bake DFS baseball bitches from Weld County, Colorado. Dermonat nailed it. 0, though. How is that possible? Yeah, 0. Ugly football game. I mean, the rain didn't help, obviously. But, yeah, that was just an atrocious football game. Kind of a light run board in a lot of ways. We do have the big totals at cores, obviously. We've got a couple popping up to 5. But overall, there's a lot of 3s. There's a lot of light yellow on here. Kind of a pitching lean today, and I think that makes sense because this pitching board goes deep. We've got a premium top end, a lot of really highly projected guys through the mid-range that are all really viable pitchers. Other places, Logan Gilbert is more in this range. I got him down here a little bit, but I mean, this is totally competitive from here. You've got viable plays in this range. Like Chris Bassett is most likely at least going to give you 7 innings, as bad as the matchup has been. He's been fairly effective in a lot of spots this season. Dane Dunning on the other side of that game has been a lot shakier lately, but he's value priced. He's way down here. I don't really buy into any of these guys being options, but Clark Schmidt's been, somewhat viable for 6,600 on DK. I think he's at least on the board for some value. Not a great environment in terms of pitching that game at Fenway Park against the Red Sox, but for that price, he's probably there. So, I mean, this is a 17-man pitching slate. Maybe Zach Davies doesn't belong on that list, but he's only 52 and he projects a little bit higher than Schmidt. If Schmidt's on the board at 66, I think Davies is probably on the board for 52 as just total dart throw value play. You get a high strikeout guy against a high strikeout team like Reed Detmers for these prices up here. He's projecting through the roof. I think this is a super deep pitching slate. A lot of options. Let's get into it. And we'll start this first game up. Let's see if we got lineups yet. Blue Jays is in. I had the Blue Jays. That was a wasted 10 seconds. So, start us off with the Dane Dunning and Chris Bassett matchup that I was just referring to as we were looking at that board. Bassett, for the season, 22% strikeout rate, 3.69 ERA, a 4.38 xFIP. Did I move the screen up? Yeah, I did. 4.38 xFIP for Bassett. It's a Chris Bassett kind of a season. Giving up a little bit of power with a 3.48% home run rate, but only 35.6% hard hits. Just a lot of balls in the air, a lot of barrels, but not tragic. He had one terrible start to start the season. He had a couple really bumpy starts throughout the year. But overall, in the game, like most of his games are successful, pretty deep starts. He's thrown 173 in a third innings in 29 starts. He's one of the most reliable pitchers to book more than 6 innings. Chase the quality start, chase the wins, obviously. I think the Blue Jays are in a pretty good spot here against Dane Dunning. Dunning's a good pitcher. He does check power a lot of the time, so their power's not really coming through a lot. I think they get to Dane Dunning in this spot. I prefer the Blue. Put it this way: if I'm trying to hunt for the win, I'm on the Blue Jays side of that equation. Not that Bassett's unhittable by any means, and the Rangers are a really good lineup on the other side. He doesn't project all that well. He's kind of high priced. So while I do think Bassett's a good bet for some innings, he's probably going to give up some runs. Maybe not that many, but he might not pay off that DFS price on such a deep slate. So he was kind of down board overall. I think he just falls by the wayside, but I think maybe he's worth a few shares if you're building out a full 150, and I can't imagine he's going to be highly owned in this spot. Just on the idea that he could pitch cleanly against this team for across 7, find 5 or 6 strikeouts and book the win, I think it's maybe worth a couple shots, but it's such a deep pitching slate that you probably don't want to waste too many shares on it. Dunning on the other side is at least value priced, 7,600, 7,500. Where'd he go? Last time out was the atrocious game. 9 earned runs, 3 home runs, 4 strikeouts, 2 walks, 11 hits in 5 1/3. That was against the Astros. I don't know why I wrote Sam Astros. I just made some quick notes on the recent performances for some of these guys because there's been some bumpy spots. There's been some weird starts from some of these guys. So especially on the bottom end, there's some interesting stuff to talk about. So that was a disaster. 3 earned runs in 5 of the last 6 starts for Dunning. That's why I'm saying I think the Blue Jays at least get him for a few here. He had a couple big strikeout games this year that were odd. He's not a premium strikeout guy by any means. 18.9% strikeout rate this year. 3.88 xFIP is very effective. A 3.88 ERA, 4.43 xFIP. He's been very effective. He's had his peak games, but this isn't a great matchup for him. So I think just as a mid-board option with a bad projection, mid-board price-wise, he's maybe in the mix for a few darts. Wow, a lot of lineups just dropped. But I don't think he's any kind of priority. Let me grab the Rangers lineup. Yankees lineup is in, A's lineup, and the Twins lineups are also in. So I think Dunning's gettable. I think the Blue Jays are a playable stack. They ranked out... grab the stacks board. They were middle of the board. Lower middle, like 14th. But again, that's once you get to like 5th through like 14th in the fat part of the, when it's sorted by projections, roughly the same. 14th by power. That one's a little bit bigger of a spread, and that's because Dunning is traditionally pretty good at limiting power. This year, 3.11% home runs, 10.1 degree average launch, 8.1% barrels. Last year, a little bit better at 2.98% home runs and a 5.4 degree average launch. A few more barrels. Last 2 years were better for limiting launch, limiting home runs, but only by a little. So he's relatively effective at that. But again, he had the total mess the last time out where he gave up 3 home runs. Seems like every time I say it and feature that about Dane Dunning, he goes out and gives up a couple. So it hasn't been great in recent outings. A lot of talent on the Blue Jays side. George Springer, Bo Bichette, Vladdy Guerrero, Brendan Belt back in the lineup, 4,100, 2,900. Davis Schneider. This is a really premium top 5. Bottom end trails off a little bit. Kevin Biggio's never really become what he was expected to become, but he does have a little bit of pop, 8 home runs, only a 145 ISO, 9.7% barrels for 2,900, 2,300, multi-position on both sites. He's at least worth playing if you're building out a bunch of the top 5 of the Blue Jays. Then you get Alejandro Kirk, a little bit of pop at catcher, but not really. 6 home runs on the season, a 101 ISO. Doesn't do that much at the plate. Varsho was better offensively last year. 16 homers, 15 steals this year, 19% worse than average creating runs. Kevin Kiermaier, both of these guys are playing very good defense for this team. That's why they're in the outfield every day. But overall, not great at the plate this year. Varsho's been better than Kiermaier for sure, and who's expected to. But Kiermaier's creating more runs. Varsho's been better for counting stats. The top of the lineup's where the stars are. Springer up to 19 homers, 19 steals, a 108 WRC plus. Limited season overall for him. Limited season overall for Vladdy. Vladdy still crushes the ball when he makes contact. We're still over 50% hard hits. Still at 11.4% barrels. 21 homers, only a 169 ISO. It's just weird results. But he's still squaring the ball up. He's still hitting it very, very hard. For DFS purposes, you don't skip Vladdy Guerrero. Brendan Belt, 41, 29, 134 WRC plus, leads the team in his 380 plate appearances. 16 home runs, a 221 ISO. 13.9% barrels. He should just be more expensive. Even though he plays the same position as Vladdy, he should just be more expensive. When he's been in the lineup, he's been really good. 15.8% walks, 34.7% strikeouts, but the 371 on base, all the run creation, all the power completely offsets any of the strikeout issues. Schneider's been really good. 4,000, 5,100. He's pricey. 7 home runs, a 251 WRC plus in 94 plate appearances. Nothing to really argue with. 21.7% barrel rate. He's been crushing the ball. It's going to cool, but, if you're stacking this team, I don't see how you're really skipping them all that many times. So 1 through 5 are high priorities. Bo Bichette I skipped over, but obviously a star at shortstop. 313, 344, 486, a 128 WRC plus, 18 homers. Hasn't been totally the same since going out of the lineup a little while back, but that's why he only cost 3,000 on the FanDuel slate, 5,400 on DK. This is just an absolute bargain of a price for this hitter. So I like the Blue Jays' opportunity against Dunning. On the Rangers side, you've got the obvious stars in the infield. They're both pricey, but as we always talk about, these guys just immediately help average down the prices of those guys. So you can get to any combination of the top end here. You've got no Adolis Garcia, of course, but you've got Mitch Garver hitting cleanup. I think that's a lot of value for 4,300 at the catcher spot. 35 on FanDuel. He's been really, really good. He's worth that price, but it's just better where he's a value play at a mandatory catcher spot. You've also got Jonah Heim later in the lineup. If you want to drop down a little bit in price, take a similar bet. 15 homers for Heim, 16 in fewer plate appearances for Garver. Garver's the better of the two, but they're both power-hitting catchers, both reasonable for the money. Robbie Grossman hitting 5th. I don't love that. 3,000, 2,500. 8 home runs, a 94 WRC plus. Leo de Taveras down to a 96 WRC plus. Does still have interesting counting stats. Power and speed. The hard hit profile still all right. He's just more of this kind of a player overall. But he's had a really good season, a really productive season from a guy that was, kind of make or break year almost for him in terms of was he going to fulfill the promise that we once saw in him. So I think he's taken a nice step this year. I think you can absolutely roster him given the spot in the lineup today. Hits from both sides of the plate. Evan Carter at the bottom, we talked about the other day. Good numbers in the minors, 2,500, 2,200. An interesting asset to potentially wrap back around. He's not the dead minimum anymore like he was the other day when we spoke about him, but I think it's an option. 8 plate appearances, 1 stolen base. Hasn't really done much of anything so far. Probably still sneaky from the bottom of the lineup as a wraparound play. I would not want to play him with like these guys. I want to play him with these guys. Right? Makes sense. Stat by stat, I mean, there's nothing to say but rave reviews for Seager and Semien, obviously. 24 homers, 14 steals, 30 homers. One of the best players in all of baseball at 177 WRC plus in 450 plate appearances. Tears the cover off the ball, 17.6%, barrels 55.3% hard hits from the shortstop. That's just ridiculous power. Low's really good, 4,500, 3,100, 23% better than average creating runs, 15 homers on the season. Supports these guys, helps average down their prices. Top 4 plus Carter at the bottom, plus Jonah Heim. Not bad. And it's not like the 5 and the 6 are bad options. They're just more mix-ins. Josh H. Smith, no matter what I do with his name, I got to go really sit down and think through and check what his name is in each of these spots, because no matter what I changed in my naming table today, I couldn't get him to pop up. He does appear here, so whatever I did over here is what I got to do. I think, to get him to come back into the models. His one of the places either added or took away the H, and it destroyed the projection for him, and I can't get it back. But he'll be in the lineup. He's a mediocre player, 76 WRC plus, 5 home runs, 1 steal. Let's move on to our... it's got to be Rangers bats on top, I would think, right? Yeah, Rangers rank 3rd by fantasy point projections against Bassett here. 11th by home run upside, though. So I go Rangers bats, Blue Jays bats, Bassett, Dunning. Pitchers way lower priorities in this one. Yanks Sox. Well, how bad does it suck that Jason Dominguez tore his UCL? Could have done without that at the end of this Yankee season. Kid was looking so good. Fortunately, he's only 20. So, I mean, even if it's mostly a lost year next year and he doesn't make it back to the show, which I think will hopefully be the process. Like, let's not rush him directly back to the majors. Give him time to get his timing back, get his power back after the UCL surgery and the UCL heals and everything. Let him cool in the minors and work his way back. If we don't see him till he's 22, that's okay. Hopefully it'll be sooner. But at least he got here so young. It's not like he's one of these. It's not like he's 24 and going to lose a full year and not be back till he's 26. So. That's the positive, but yeah, kind of messy. Estevan Florial does come up in his spot. He did make it into the lineup, which is a plus. I wasn't expecting him. I was expecting him to be with the team, but I wasn't sure if they would have him in the lineup. But he's been raking at AAA. And he's been a guy who was should have probably been playing for the Yankees for the past year plus. They've been moving him back and forth in springs. He's been on the 40-man for several years. This was like his last, I think, year of control, or the last year before he gets exposed in the Rule 5, maybe. However it works out, they're probably going to lose him after this year, which is a shame because, I mean, he's been only moderately productive in little minor drips and drabs, cups of coffee in the show. But we're talking about a kid who this year in 482 plate appearances in AAA, 28 homers, 25 stolen bases, a 129 WRC plus, a 281 ISO. He's playing at age 25. That's not crazy old for AAA, but you're getting toward the upper ends of AAA. Last year at age 24 in AAA, 15 homers, 39 steals, a 199 ISO, a 124 WRC plus, hits for average, gets on base. Last year, 283, 368, 481 in AAA. This year, 284, 385, 65. Strikes out a lot, 30% strikeout guy, but also walks. 11.7% walks last year, 13.7% this year. This kid should have started the season on this team. But no, Aaron Hicks had to play left field. Harrison Bader. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of weird decisions. Even 2 years ago, 362 plate appearances in AAA in 21. 13 homers, 13 steals. Triple slash wasn't quite there, 93 WRC plus, but he's really come on over the last 2 years, and hopefully he'll get a full-time shot now. Maybe he'll be on the team next year. But for today, I think he's a really nice value at the dead minimum on both sites. First plate appearances of the year from the bottom of the lineup. He should probably be hitting here. Jake Bauer's fine. I'll take Jake Bauer 7th. Florial is a much better hitter than Oswaldo Cabrera. Cabrera is just... This should be Oswald Peraza. I don't know where they've got Cabrera playing today, but Cabrera is not a major league hitter. 202, 280, 417. He's a nice utility man who can literally play every position on the field except catcher, but he's not a hitter. Not that they're hitting him up here or anything, but like Peraza should be in the lineup every day. Volpe hitting 6th is interesting. 3,900, 2,600, 20 homers, 22 steals. Only an 88 WRC plus. We've talked about his flaws all season. The counting stats are very nice. He's priced correctly. 3,900, 2,600. It's not like you're paying a lot for him. There's a lot of value in this Yankees stack today. Aaron Judge, tremendous source of power. Giancarlo Stanton, tremendous source of power. Stanton, 23 home runs at 242 ISO. At the Mendoza line, 200, 282, 442. An ugly triple slash, but still obliterates the ball when he makes contact. Judgy, full priced, 31 homers, 339 ISO. Ridiculous contact, 26.5% barrels, 63.7% hard hits. Just totally ludicrous contact for Judge. DJ, off the top of the lineup, a little bit of a power surge over the last few weeks, but overall really limited. Gleyber Torres, much better player at this point, hitting 3rd, 4,700, 3,400. Very cheap for a player with 25 home runs, 13 steals, a 121 WRC plus, a 14.3% strikeout rate, 40% hard hits. I don't really get why Gleyber's so cheap at second base. I think you can take advantage of that on DK. Around the appropriate price, you'd probably be like, call it 3,600, but FanDuel's got it more correct than DK does. Definite source of value on the DK board. Austin Wells, the rookie catcher. So far, not all that much at the plate in the show, but he's expected to hit. AAA this year, Wells, 146 plate appearances in AAA after he was called up. He started the year in AA. So AA was 263 plate appearances, 11 homers, 5 stolen bases. 206 ISO, 107 WRC plus. Then he came up a few plate appearances, 146 plate appearances in AAA, 5 homers, 198 ISO at the average 100 WRC plus. So far, inept at the plate in the show, but it's only been 24 plate appearances. Hitting 5th, playing catcher for 2,600 in this Yankees lineup. I do think there's value there. They're going up against Cutter Crawford. I started with the lineup because it's much more of a hitting opportunity, I think. Crawford doesn't project well. Neither does Clark Schmidt on the other side. So I think there's major power on both sides here. I think we're just going to bats in this one. It's Fenway Park. I don't really want to mess around. You can go to the value pricing with either of these guys. They've both shown talent through the year. It just seems like so much more of a hitting environment. Is there weather in this game? Not sure what's going on. Tizzleman says we're on opposite sides with the Sox and Yanks. Going to be a boring October. We did get to have a bunch of fun ones, though. But, yeah, unfortunately. Should be a quick rebuild for you guys. Maybe more, we'll see what happens with Dominguez, but maybe a little slower for my Yankees. Mamba. What's up, Mamba? Just trying to catch up, make sure I didn't miss anything in chat. Oof. Mamba dropping a lot on the betting side. All right. Hope it goes well, buddy. Yeah, like you're saying, hop into the Discord. Share some of that. If you got thoughts, man, anybody sharp out there that wants to punch up some thoughts, and I'm happy to have a little section on the site, give you a little space, and maybe we'll little betting column. Mamba's favorite player props. I don't know. Whatever people want to see, I'm open to it. So, looking up and down the Red Sox lineup. Oh, I was saying pitchers. So, Cutter Crawford, 4.49 xFIP, a 4.36 ERA, 24.1% strikeout rate. Okay at limiting power. 35.1% hard hits is good. 87.9 miles an hour of exit velo is good. 3.60% home run rate is a little bit higher than you'd expect from that kind of contact. Where is he in here? Short innings, short outings, 2 of the last 3. 3 2/3, 2 2/3 in his last 2. 5 innings, the third start back before that. Last time out against the Rays, 5 strikeouts, but walked 4. Gave up 5 earned runs, a home run, but only 3 hits. Only 1 strikeout in that 2 2/3 inning game. Gave up 6 earned runs on 7 hits to Houston. That's kind of ugly. He struck out 7 Dodgers, 2 earned runs on 4 hits in the 5-inning start. Just not getting a lot of depth from him. But 5,700, 6,200, I do think as a value dart on DK at least, Cutter Crawford, you can throw it. It's just not a great environment going up against the Yanks, all their power, Fenway Park, etc., etc. Same thing with Clark Schmidt on the other side. 140 2/3, 28 starts. He's got a 4.54 ERA, a 4.19 xFIP, 22.8% strikeouts. He's been effective enough. Last time out, 6 1/3 with 6 strikeouts, 3 earned runs on 5 hits against Detroit. The time before that, 7 strikeouts, 3 walks, 3 earned runs on 6 hits at Detroit. He's just kind of average-ish starter. But on a deep pitching slate where he doesn't project well, he's going up against the Red Sox in Fenway Park. I just don't see Clark Schmidt really going out there and spiking a slate-winning score. 66 on DK, it's fine as a value dart, but just know what you're getting into. It's not really a premium option here. Red Sox bats for sure. I think that's a good spot. They ranked out, lower than I would expect, actually, just eyeballing it. Well, we do. All right, so it averages down toward the bottom with Willy Abreu, Emmanuel Valdez, and Reese McGuire down there. Those 3 guys are dragging down the collective average. I should probably be a little bit higher if we're just looking at the top 6. Trevor Story also probably doesn't project all that well given the current season performance so far. But the top 6 are priority bats in this spot, in my opinion. Alex Verdugo off the top, 277, 338, 448 creates runs 8% better than average. Solid lefty bat. I won't say he's a star by any means. I won't say he's good. He's certainly not Mookie Betts. This was the prime piece that came back in that trade. Only a 2.54 in the home run model, but doesn't strike out, puts the ball in play, just right on theme with a lot of what this team wants to do. Justin Turner's the same thing. Justin Turner's a much, much better hitter, but Justin Turner's the same thing in terms of putting the ball in play constantly. 16.9% strikeouts from Justin Turner in the 3rd spot in this lineup. So 2 very low strikeout guys surrounding Rafi Devers with all his power and also an ability to avoid strikeouts at just 19.3% off the top of the lineup here. I just think it's a deadly top 3. All the power from Tristan Casas for only 4,400, 3,200. Getting to Yoshida in the 5th spot goes back to a low strikeout, put the ball in play, get on base kind of a guy. It's a dangerous lineup for Clark Schmidt. There's going to be plenty of contact available for them. He doesn't really walk that many. He doesn't give up a ton of power, but he gives up a lot of hard hits. The 42% hard hits, 8% barrels, almost 90 miles an hour with exit velo against this team. It just doesn't play well in this ballpark. Rafi Devers, 29 home runs. He's got to get that 30th. He's been stuck at 29 for a while. Not that I'm rooting for Rafael Devers in like the grander sense of things, but for DFS purposes, just for a good player, we've been talking about his power all season, like he should have 30 home runs by now. He's been stuck at that 29 for a while, but still 231 ISO, premium contact, 53.8% hard hits, 12.1% barrels, and puts the ball in play a lot when he's not hitting home runs. Casas up to 24 home runs at 231 ISO, just a masher. He also walks 13.8% of the time, has a 365 on base percentage that leads this team among regulars. So he's just involved all the time, even when he's not hitting home runs. He's got a 129 WRC plus. Kid's a killer first baseman. Yoshida for 45-34, giving you a 293, 345, 458, 15 home runs, 8 steals, 114 WRC plus. Story's been bad, 28 WRC plus, but he's stolen 7 bases and he's making pretty good contact. Contact's dipped a little bit, but still 10.8% barrels, 44.6% hard hits from a player that I know can deliver over time. 4,200, 2,900. Take the bargain. Just keep going back to Trevor Story. He'll deliver at some point, and you'll be ahead of the field. Abreu, 11.5% barrels, 50% hard hits so far. For the price, he's giving you 342, 405, 526, 151 WRC plus. Price is still pretty good. I don't mind going to Willy Abreu down toward the bottom of the lineup. It's a spot, he's not Yoshida, but it's a mix and match spot maybe if you're stacking a bunch of Red Sox lineups and you want to differentiate, save a few bucks. I don't mind taking him over Yoshida in a few spots. Manuel Valdez, more of a mixer down toward the bottom. Reese McGuire, a cheap catcher. talked about basically everybody in the Yankees side of things. I skipped over Jake Bauers, but he does have a little bit of value for 2,700, 2,500. First base and outfield on both sites. He's got 11 home runs on the season and only 246 opportunities. A 216 ISO. Makes pretty good contact when he connects. 20.1% barrels, 49.3% hard hits. That lefty power can play in Fenway Park. Red Sox bats. Yankees bat. Well, the Yanks probably rank out better on the board. Yeah. Yanks rank out better. Yanks showing a lot of power, too. Second by home run upside. Carried a lot by Judge and Stanton, obviously. All right, so I'll be a homer. What the hell? Yankees bats, Red Sox bats, but it's close. And then neither pitcher from me, but you can throw value darts with either pitcher on the DK slate. Diamondbacks, Mets. I think the pitching, if you're going to pitching in this one, we're on the Quintana side of this. 7,300, 9,000. Kind of tough to get to at 9,000 on FanDuel, even though he projects well. Just a lot of higher strikeout pitchers. If we're not just buying him for a clean innings kind of a price, I don't really love it. 17.7% strikeout rate overall, 9.5% walk rate. Pitching to a very clean 3 ERA, but a much uglier 4.83 xFIP that you got to be wary about. Even though he's been good, he's not under the surface necessarily been good. 0.45% home run rate is fantastic. 4.4% barrels, 32.5% hard hits. He's been spectacular at limiting contact, limiting run scoring pretty well in his 9 starts, his 54 innings. But a low ceiling. If nothing else, I think it's just a low ceiling spot. 7 innings last time out, 4 strikeouts, 1 walk, 1 earned run on 4 hits. That's probably around your ceiling. You know, on DK, I think he's perfectly viable. 7,300 is correct. That's the right price. He's just kind of a good mid-range option, mid-range price. You get a little bit of value for that price. He could be up to, if they had him at like 8, if they had him at like 78, somewhere around there, I wouldn't really argue with it. I think he's got that, that 7-inning, possibly a win kind of a value. Mets showing plenty of power. Obviously an opportunity going up against Zach Davies. On the stacks board, they ranked in the middle, 12th. Overall by collective fantasy points, just right in the tightly packed middle, but 6th by home run value against Davies. You've got both Lindor and Alonso over the magic number. Narvaez in the lineup instead of Francisco Alvarez, so that's a little bit of a ding to the overall power. But you've got Beatty and Mark Vientos in the lineup. Both of those guys have a little bit of pop late in the lineup. Ronny Mauricio, interesting option for cheap multi-position on both sites. DJ Stewart with his weird lefty power output is not uninteresting, hitting 5th. So I think the Mets are an interesting stack going up against a pitcher like Davies. 18.3% strikeouts, only 18.3% strikeouts, 10.2% walks, a 6.81 ERA, pushing almost a 5 xFIP, a 1.6 WHIP. You can see the opportunities here. Not giving up that much in terms of the home runs, 2.48% home runs, but 41.7% hard hits, 89.5 miles an hour of exit velo, and enough barrels to support the idea of realistic Mets power from premium home run hitters like Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso. Alonso, one of the higher overall on the day at 14.94. He's got 43 home runs on the season, a 306 ISO, 132 WRC+. plus. There is room for you on the Yankees, Pete Alonso, if you're really going to get traded this season. Though I'd really greatly prefer my first baseman to be left-handed in Yankee Stadium anyway. Mamba brings up a good point. I forgot to check the weather. Right now it is like overcast and just bleh here, but it's not actively raining, but it's been a nasty couple of days and it's supposed to. See what good old Mr. Roth thinks in his free weather forecast. Whew, that's a lot of yellow and orange. All right, those are all early games. Yeah, Boston, mess of storms in the area. Same thing here. So basically, yeah, the same rain that you're dealing with in Philly right now is probably on its way to New York, on its way to Queens, and kind of also covering the same with the Boston area. So Boston's got the weather that New York had yesterday, which was just nasty, rainy, stormy kind of weather all day. And then New York's basically got the same weather that Philly's dealing with. So flip to whatever's going on in the Phillies game right now, and you could probably find out. But it doesn't look great. If I had to leave right now, I would probably be going to the game if I had tickets. But I wouldn't be optimistic given this forecast. It seems like the expert is saying that there will be a chance to play, but probably a late start in Queens. Same thing in Boston. Looks like there's also weather in Minnesota, Chicago for the White Sox, and Colorado for the Coors Field game. Seems less in Colorado, less concerning. That weather report is always free over at RG. Mr. Roth, good weatherman. I assume he's an actual weatherman somewhere, like doing the, well, Shannon, you can see that sweeping through the Northeast, there's a low pressure front, and then up from Florida is going to be a massive hurricane. That kind of a weatherman? Does he work for like some weather channel, or is he just like a weather DFS, like his RG is his prime job? It'd be weird to be traveling someday and just like pop the TV on and there he is. Anyway, so it's bats on the Mets side for sure. Limited shares of Jose Quintana. I think he's very, very playable. A pretty good mid-level value option on the DK slate. He's going up against a low strikeout Diamondbacks team that does... Oh, actually, well, that's... All right, a couple low samples in there, skewing that Diamondback strikeout rate pretty significantly. So mostly the prime players. Marte, Carroll, Pham, Christian Walker, Lourdes Gurriel, Evan Longoria is in there. He's pushing the strikeout rate up, and then the small sample for Jordan Lawler pushes the strikeout rate way up. So ignore the collective strikeout rate. It's a pretty low strikeout Diamondbacks group, and he's a pretty low strikeout guy. So we're just looking for him for clean innings and value at 73 on DK. Not really into him on the FanDuel slate. Davies is just a no on the mound for me, even at 5,200. Like I said at the top of the show, if you're considering some of the other low-end guys as potential values, then I guess you could throw Zach Davies in there, but because he's so low priced, and he will pitch 5 or 6 innings if he's pitching well. 6.81 ERA doesn't really have that much appeal. 4.92 xFIP doesn't really have that much appeal. All the walks, lack of strikeouts. I just expect the Mets to get to him. If you're going to the Diamondbacks, Quintana is good at limiting power so far this year, but we're seeing a couple guys over the magic number for power. Corbin Carroll, even though it's lefty-lefty. We're seeing Christian Walker at 10.35. Ketel Marte in the lead spot at 9.34 in the home run model. So showing a little bit of power for a team that's definitely got it. A team that puts the ball in play ridiculously well. A lot of premium hard hit rates through this top end. Good amount of barrels. Mostly fairly low strikeout rates. Right? That top half, that top 6, even with Longoria's 32.1 in there, is at a 21.3% strikeout rate. If you leave out Longo, the regular's 19.1%. So just a lot of pop, a lot of guys who are good at getting on base. That top group there, even with the 307 that Lourdes Gurriel is giving us in the on-base department, 339. If we take Gurriel out, the top 4, 347. These guys are good at correlated scoring, good at creating runs, sequencing. A lot of run creation here. Looking at the pricing, Marte, very fairly priced at 51.35, 22 home runs, 125 WRC plus. These sites get a lot of the second baseman pricing wrong. Marte's a premium second baseman. Corbin Carroll, 57.38. For what he was doing earlier in the season, kind of bargain pricing. He's totaled at around 24 home runs, 47 steals. He'll probably get the 50 steals, probably get the 25 home runs, which would be just an amazing season. But he's cooled off from what he was doing earlier in the year, but still fantastic. Lefty-lefty struggles a little bit, but he's been getting more looks at the top of the lineup lefty-lefty lately. I think it makes it a very interesting spot for DFS. Hopefully he goes overlooked a little bit. Pham, very good player, 35-32, 15 homers, 18 steals, a 115 WRC plus. Revenge spot for Tommy Pham, if that's your thing. Not that I don't think he really has all that much against the Mets, and I don't do that at all, but popped into my head, and if that's your thing, he did play for this team earlier this season. Christian Walker, too cheap at 4,600 on DK. 34 on FanDuel, arguably a couple bucks cheap. He's got 30 home runs this year at 243 ISO, 25% better than average creating runs. Don't really get why Christian Walker remains so inexpensive. Doesn't strike out, throws a fair amount of walks. Gurriel, very good power bat, 23 home runs on the season. Taking a dip in terms of the batting average. The on-base percentage still above average creating runs. Absolutely a part of my plans in Diamondback stacks at 39-31. And other players kind of cheap. Longo's cheap at 3,200, 2,300 at third base for his power. So far this season, 11% barrels, 54.3% hard hits in his 215 plate appearances. He's been stuck at those 11 home runs because he only plays like once a week. But when he's in there, at these value prices, that's a lot of power against a mediocre lefty to be able to book at third base. 218 ISO. I like the spot for Longo. Emmanuel Rivera, 2,800, 2,300. A value mixer late in the lineup. 17% worse than average creating runs. Lawler. What was he doing on the minors? He's very young. AA, 15 homers, 33 steals. AAA, 5 homers, 3 steals in only 80 plate appearances. Top prospect, only 21. So really accelerated, getting his cup of coffee, September call-up, roster expansion, yada, yada, yada. 2,200, 2,000 for our purposes. I think he's definitely in play. Hasn't done much in his 12 plate appearances so far. Stolen base, negative 26 WRC+, but a premium prospect jumping into the lineup instead of Geraldo Perdomo here. And then Sebi Zavala. Honestly, didn't even realize the Diamondbacks had picked him up, but 7 home runs in 179 plate appearances. Had that was him, right? Three home runs against the Yankees. Pretty sure. So, take it for what it's worth. Not a lot of power. Maybe a little bit of infrequent pop from a cheap catcher. Where they rank? Mets, I think, are above the D-backs. No, D-backs creeping up. Actually, all that power. So, D-backs bats, Mets bats. Close by projections, D-backs 3rd by power, Mets 6th by power. So, showing a decent amount of pop in this game if it ends up playing. This would be a high-priority game for me if it ended up playing. And then Quintana, if you're rostering one of the pitchers. Davies only an extreme value dart on the DK slate that probably will not work out. Good pitching matchup in this one. Let's see if we've got lineups. I'm sure we do. Doesn't look like we do, actually. Let me reload. So, Brandon Woodruff, mostly terrific since returning. Where's he in this thing? Last time out, 7 clean innings, 2 hits, 6 Ks, 2 walks at Pittsburgh, 8 strikeouts, 2 earned runs on 2 hits and 6 at Chicago against the Cubbies. And then an 11 strikeout, 1 earned run game on a home run, 3 hits against San Diego. So just looks like Brandon Woodruff. For the season in his 8 starts, 31.3% strikeouts, 2.30 ERA, a 3.61 xFIP, giving up a little bit of power, but this is all incidental in only 8 starts and 47 innings. Focus on the strikeout rate, the low walks, everything else, the .79 whip, just not giving up many opportunities, not giving up many runs. The few odd runs that he has given up have come on long balls, but overall, terrific option. Premium projection, very high priced at $11,000 on FanDuel. 10.3 is a little bit more reasonable on DK, but obviously a premium big ticket item. On the other side, Jesus Luzardo, $8,500 is a misprice on DK. I get that the Brewers are pretty good. I get that they're a playoff team, yada, 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 but Luzardo's a top-end lefty. 28.2% strikeout rate on the season, a 3.59 ERA, a 3.67 xFIP. He's gotten 6 in 3 straight. Struck out 7, then 8, then 6 at San Diego versus Tampa versus the Dodgers. Pretty good teams there. Shut out the first 2 on 2 hits, then 1 hit. Gave up 2 earned runs to the Dodgers on 4 hits. Pretty good stretch of starts. I think similar upside for sure today, with a ceiling probably beyond that for if he has a big punch-out game. Jesus Luzardo is too cheap on DK at $8,500. Take advantage. That's a very good option from the middle. You can roster Luzardo as a 1. And honestly, you could pair Luzardo and Quintana if you wanted to go that route. That's not awful. And just go like middle. Because Luzardo's a true 1. Major strikeout upside. 14% swinging strikes, basically a 30% CSW against the Brewers team that, they're not bad for strikeouts, but they're not completely elite, depending on who's in the lineup. I like that spot a lot on DK. 97, I would have a bunch of it on FanDuel as well. It's just not the bargain that it is on DK. You can roster some Brewers bats against him, but I don't love the spot. Where'd they rank out? They are 18th by projection. 10th and 12th on FanDuel, 10th on DK, and 13th for points per dollar value, 13th for home runs. So just like middling in terms of value, middling in terms of power, and low projected in terms of my projections. Don't really like the option that much, but there are good bats, obviously. No Christian Yelich. You got Mark Canha in the leadoff spot. That's kind of taking away the premium player that I would want to get to. But Canha's playable from there. 3,000, 2,700. Value option, 9 home runs, 8 steals, a 112 WRC+. Plus, veteran righty. William Contreras does have a lot of value at catcher for 4,900. A lot of plate appearances, hitting second, 32 on FanDuel. If you're going to this team, you can definitely include him. Carlos Santana, both sides of the plate, little power, 19 home runs, only a 177 ISO, 93 WRC+. Plus. Willy Adames, lots of power, but flawed everywhere else. 210, 296, 402, only an 88 WRC plus despite 24 home runs. Cheap enough at shortstop though for all his barrels, all his home run potential. Tyrone Taylor, reasonable enough home run hitter. 6 on the season and only 187 plate appearances. Had 17 last year. Joey Wiemer, decent for counting stats, 13 homers, 11 steals. Ender Monasterio, Bryce Turang, Brian Anderson. Anderson's just been bad. He had, I think, all 9 of these home runs before like May 15th, and he's just been bad the rest of the way. 355 plate appearances, does have a 10.6% barrel rate as a righty against a lefty if we're hunting for reasons to play Brian Anderson. But it's kind of a limited bottom 5 for the Brewers. Mark Canha in the leadoff roles, kind of, it's, I don't know, middling stack at best. Priority bats would probably be nobody, really. It's not really a priority bat kind of a team. I think if you're going to the Brewers, you can play any of these guys. It trails off at Brian Anderson, but like Turang's been okay for some stolen bases, a little bit of power. Monasterio, a 95 WRC plus. All these guys are basically the same down here. Priorities are obviously the top 4, just for lineup spots and talent, but meh kind of a spot. Marlins also on the other side, not a great spot. I like their lineup. Luis Arraez, Josh Bell, Jake Berger, Jazz Chisholm, Brian De La Cruz, Jesus Sanchez. Those are 6 good players. It's just Woodruff's been so good, and we know that he's good. It's not like it's a weird outburst of 8 starts that were good. He's just a very, very good pitcher. So it doesn't look like a great spot without their best power bat. I don't love it. I think you can grab a few if you want it. If you want to take like a contrarian position against Woodruff. They rank in the middle of the board, 11th by fantasy point projections, only 9th by FanDuel value, 14th by DK value, and 18th by home run upside, though. So they're going to have to sequence. They're going to have to string together hits and runs. Luis Arraez is very good at that. 349, 391, 448. It's cooled dramatically, though. The on base is still fantastic. The run creation is still very good. Josh Bell, up to 20 home runs, showing us a lot since coming to the Marlins. Kind of back to being Josh Bell after getting himself out of Cleveland. He must have really just disliked Cleveland. Not that that's actually why he wasn't that good there. But no support in the lineup, yada, yada. You know, these things are real. Jake Berger, 18.4% barrels. Definitely a good power hitter. 31 home runs on the season. 117 WRC plus. Jazz is their star player in this version of the lineup. 103 WRC plus. 16 homers, 19 steals in half a season. Very, very good option there. He's a little bit pricey at 52.35, but he's worth it talent-wise. The top end, this is why they're only ranked in the middle for value. These are kind of high prices for some of these guys. De La Cruz, good season overall. Not a great season. Looked like he was going to have a big breakout, but he might get to 20 home runs. He's at 19. 96 WRC plus and 565. Not bad. Jesus Sanchez, also a half season, 13 home runs, a 211 ISO, though, 120 WRC plus for 31.28. That's a good piece of value from the left side if he's lurking in the lineup down there. Looks like the Brewers lineup just came out. Canha, Contreras, Carlos Santana, Willie Adames, Josh Donaldson in the lineup for the Brewers. Look at that. Lucky them, they managed to pick up Josh Donaldson on waivers. Congratulations. I hope you enjoy him in the clubhouse. Apparently one of the bigger assholes in all of baseball. Who knew? 3,800, 2,500, 10 home runs, 142, 225, 434, 74 WRC plus on the season. Played his way out of the Bronx. Does have a 19.7% barrel rate and 51.3% hard hits. That's a not insignificant power bat to drop into the middle of that lineup today. I still prefer the Luzardo side, but that's an interesting enough piece of value that if you're stacking Brewers, I would definitely include Josh Donaldson in my stacks. Everybody else we were expecting. Sal Frelick makes it into the lineup. A little bit high priced. Lefty spot for Frelick. Not really a great option late in the lineup. They're playable. Again, different versions of this are stackable from 1 through 9 on a talent and price basis and position basis. A lot of outfielders, 4 outfielders on DK. Not a great spot. Greatly prefer the pitching. Woodruff, Luzardo. Woodruff, Luzardo, and then bats are tied basically in my mind. Another premium pitching spot. Glasnow. Love this opportunity for Glasnow. Tons of strikeouts available in this Twins lineup. Let me grab the confirmed versions. Glasnow is just a premium strikeout option in most opportunities. And the Twins have just been feeding big strikeout games to pitchers. So we get Glass now for 10-8 on DK, 11-5 on FanDuel. Big projection, one of the higher ones on the board. 33.5% strikeout rate on the season, a 3.07 ERA, a 2.7 xFIP. Just been pitching great. 2.50% home run rate. Gives up some premium contact, but it's always on a low launch angle, so I don't really mind the premium contact. The barrels should be lower. This means that people have just, when they've hit some explosive home runs against them, but just not many. So I'm not really worried about it. Over the last handful, 14 strikeouts in 6 innings, 1 earned run on 3 hits versus the Red Sox last time out against the lineup like that. That's around your ceiling, but I think it's a spectacular comp. 24.5% strikeouts for this Twins team. Ryan Jeffers down at the bottom of the lineup as a value catcher option, 29.5% strikeouts. 10 home runs in 285 plate appearances. Not bad in terms of the triple slash. Andrew Stevenson, a lefty at the bottom of the lineup, limits strikeouts to 21.1, but that's only in 19 plate appearances. Donovan Solano, a low strikeout, low power bat, late in the lineup, kind of a good line drive type hitter, but not really a premium power threat by any means. Willie Castro in this lineup, 23.8% strikeouts, so another guy, not one of their premium power bats. So they've cut the strikeout rates down a little bit by putting in some of these less threatening guys down toward the bottom, but I think it's still a primed spot for strikeouts. Several of their premium bats, several of their stars strike out a lot. Edward Julian, for as good as he's been, 31.1% strikeout rate this year. Kirilloff, 26.2%. Kepler's good good relative to this team, but 21.8%, a little bit over 1 and 5. Carlos Correa, same thing. Definitely some punch-out upside here for Tyler Glass now. A lot of multi-position guys on FanDuel, less so on DK, on the twin stack side of things. They're fair priced in terms of the value. 13th on FanDuel, 11th on DK for point per dollar, 8th for home run upside, but that was with a different version of the lineup, so I would ignore that. They probably pick up a little bit in terms of the points per dollar, given some of the cheap guys that dropped into the lineup. So I think they're in play for value, but it's not a good spot for it. Just too good a pitching matchup or too good a pitcher on the other side. Sonny Gray, 88.98, I think is fairly priced for a matchup against the Rays here. Gray, recent performances, only 4 strikeouts, 5 strikeouts, and 4 strikeouts in his last 3. 7 in each of the 2 before that, though. 10 before that, 8 before that. So he's cooled in terms of the strikeouts in just the last 3 performances. But it was against Cleveland, one of those starts. I think one of them was against another typically low strikeout team. Over the course of the season, Sonny Gray's been very good this year. 23.9% strikeouts, a 2.98 ERA, 3.75 xFIP, so there's a little bit of concern under the covers. That's usually the case for Sonny Gray, even when he's going well. But limiting home runs to 1.05%. 39.2% hard hits, 89.2% miles an hour of exit velo, but only a 9.8 degree average launch, 6.6% barrels. He only costs 88 on DK. I think that's a very good option for value. 98 on the FanDuel slate. Appropriately priced, I guess, for how he projects. I think you can definitely take some Rays on the other side against him. Tampa ranked out 5th by fantasy point projections and 5th by value on both sites, but only 12th by home run upside. A lot of potential for some scoring from this team. A lot of dangerous bats. Yandy Diaz is a terrific option to get on base, a 401 on base percentage, only 16.1% strikeouts, 10.8% barrels, and walks, and hits everything very hard when he puts the ball in play. 53% hard hit rate, 19 homers, 320, 401, 502. He's been spectacular. Brandon Lau, tons of power, 10.8% barrels, 47.3% hard hits, 19 homers on the season. Randy Arozarena, 21 homers, 22 steals, a 125 WRC+. Josh Lowe, 18 homers, 28 steals, a 125 WRC+. Just a good lineup up and down. Jose Siri, Luke Raley, Taylor Walls, Jonathan Aranda, Rene Pinto. Kind of gets more limited as you get into the bottom 3 with Walls, Jonathan Aranda, Rene Pinto in there. But tons of power for cheap pricing from Jose Siri. Luke Raley from the left side. A lot of double-digit barrel rates, decent hard hit rates. Raley, 18 homers, 14 steals, a 128 WRC plus over 391. Jose Siri's up to 25 home runs in just 361 plate appearances. It's just been a weird, weaving in and out of, outrageous weeks and weeks from a lot of guys who are very good, mid-range type talents at best. There's not really a ton of stars on this team. It's a really weird team, but they're put together so well, and they deliver so well. In spurts for each guy, but it all works out, relatively decently, at least in DFS purposes. Bottom three are limited. 92 WRC plus for Walls. He had a nice breakout at the beginning of the season. More a speed option if he manages to get on base. Aranda, only a 110 WRC plus, but only 234, 362, 383. Been getting on base at a decent clip in his 58. And then Pinto, limited backup catcher. Glasnow, Sonny Gray, Rays bats, Twins bats. Limited in terms of the exposure to the Twins, I think. Rays, I think, are much more rosterable against Sonny Gray. Royals and the White Sox. Dylan Cease. Nobody really wants to roster Dylan Cease, even against the Royals. 83, 84. I think he's fairly priced. He projects out pretty well. 26.6% strikeout rate for the season. He walked way too many at 10.6%. He's given up 42.2% hard hits, almost 90 miles an hour of exit velo, but only 6.8% barrels, only 2.6% home runs. He should be better than he is. Needs to cut the walks, needs to cut the hits and the opportunities, but a 13.8% swinging strike rate probably shouldn't be ignored. 29.3% CSW probably shouldn't be ignored. The xFIP is much better than the ERA at 4.27 versus the 4.98. For the money, for the projection, for the matchup, I think Dylan Cease is in play. Last couple times out, 7 strikeouts in each of the last 2, but gave up 5 earned runs and 4 earned runs. Gave up 3 home runs to this Royals team the last time out at Kansas City. That's who Dylan Cease is. It's messy. It's weird results. The earned runs I was expecting, the home runs, 3 home runs in a game for a guy only giving up this many home runs and this many barrels is a little bit of an outlier. But overall, it's a talented guy going up an overall not that talented lineup, despite the random outbursts that they have, despite a decent amount of hard hits, a couple guys with pretty good barrel rates, a couple of pretty good power hitters. It's just not that great of a team. 25.3% strikeouts in this version of the lineup. Do we have the confirmed? We do. Let me grab the confirmed so that we're talking about the guys who are actually playing. 5:03, we're making okay time. 6:45 for the NFL Showdown Slate show for tonight's Bills at Jets game. That will hopefully be a lot more fun to watch than last night's Dallas at New York Giants game. Greg Biancone says he can't stand that park for both bats. Jumped off all the Mets bats, very risk averse. See, I like taking options on some of the rainy looking games sometimes, especially when their spots prime for bats. Not that necessarily is one, but I was showing some interesting numbers for Pop in that one. But I think it creates opportunities sometimes where people do jump off, people who are risk averse, and you get more often than not, unless you've got news that makes a specific action. More often than not, I feel like those games play more than the field expects them to. And especially on FanDuel, when you can swap out of it, I think that's a tremendous advantage that you can keep in. But I get the idea of not wanting to dedicate a lot of roster spots to something that might not play. Obviously makes some sense. And as James Sarcone points out, Roth has been on point all year. Yeah, he's been sharp this year. He was always the better of the DFS weathermen, but I think there's a reason that most of the other DFS weathermen have gone and found something else to do. So yeah, I follow Roth. I recommend him that everybody else does as well. Brady Singer, for his side of things, he projects out okay for the money. I've just got very little faith at this point. Weird season for him. Had been a developing, good young pitcher. I was expecting big things from him this year. He's largely disappointed. He's had a few good spots of output. Last time out, though, 5 innings, only 2 strikeouts, gave up 3 home runs, 6 earned runs on a 9-hit mess against the Chicago team. This was probably the matchup that we had in that game. So there were a lot of home runs hit in that game, or at least by both of these teams against both of these pitchers the last time they faced them. Not that we're dedicating any of our actual projections to that, or actual analysis to that, but I do think it's at least worth mentioning. Time before that, 6 strikeouts but 4 earned runs on 9 hits to Seattle. He's given up 9 hits in each of his last 3 times out with 4 or more earned runs. Kind of dicey at 7,500, 8,200. I think for the projection, for the money, you can throw some darts at what's been a very bad White Sox lineup. None of that is predictive for how he's going to come out tonight. Over the course of the season, a 5.34 ERA, but a 4.27 xFIP. Pitching better under the surface than what the results have said. Only a 19.5% strikeout rate, but was at, I believe, 24.5, if I'm remembering last year correctly. 2.92% home run rate is fine on 9.4% barrel, 9.4 degree average launch, but 48.8% hard hits. I don't know why I can't read these numbers today. My brain must still be tired from the marathon weekend. 48.8% hard hits, 91 miles an hour of exit velo. So guys are hitting them pretty hard. They just haven't been going for as many home runs as maybe they should. A non-threatening White Sox lineup on the other side, though, gives us a little bit of faith. So I think believable plays on both sides on the mound. And then limited exposures to the lineups on either side. KC ranks out 8th, so I think they're the more playable of the two teams. The White Sox rank dead last by collective fantasy point projections, despite Singer's ineptitude, because really, it's two good players. Luis Robert, Eloy Jimenez. You can take your one-offs with those guys. Some power one-offs, but we've got a lineup that's got Corey Lee at the bottom. Elvis Andrus, Gavin Sheets. This is a bad lineup. These guys should be better, but they're not, and they've been bad all season. Tim Anderson, a 57 WRC plus, the same home run that he's been clinging to since he hit it. He hit one home run that came in like July, like middle of the season. I'll hit a home run, and then nothing on either side from Tim. Just a disappointing season from a player who's been a very good player in the past. Benintendi, same thing. Supposed to be a slap hitter, get on base, create some runs. He's 9% worse than the league average creating runs. So stick anybody else in that spot, you're probably getting more output. For all his power, 5,600, 3,600, pretty good price for Lubob. 35 home runs, 17 steals, 282 ISO, 132 WRC plus. Eloy Jimenez, 15 home runs, a 166 ISO, 104 WRC plus as their second best and only other really playable part. Joel Moncada, 35-29. Andrew Vaughn, 32-29. Vaughn, playable at 103 WRC plus. You'll get around 22 home runs for the season. An okay power option, an okay righty bat late in the lineup. Elvis Andrus, I just think, is kind of unplayable at the bottom. He's fine for price. He's fine to mix into your White Sox stacks. But as much as I don't really want to go to such a low projected team, I don't want to go to the worst player on that team even more. 82 WRC plus, 5 homers, 11 steals. Can give you odd games of counting stats in the middle infield for very cheap from time to time. But when he starts and people go to this team, they tend to play Elvis Andrus. So I don't think you gain any value by playing him. And he's probably, if you had him here, maybe he'd have a little bit of value. Hitting 8th, it's just not a great spot. Priorities are here. Royal side, I do like a little bit better. They project out middle of the board, showing a little bit of power. Not a ton. MJ Melendez makes tons of contact. Still around 50% hard hits. Great barrel rate. 14 home runs, 160 ISO. Don't make any sense. Should be a better power hitter. Bobby Witt is a very good player. 28 homers, 41 steals, a 112 WRC plus. I think right now the second best power bat in this lineup is Nelson Velasquez. 12 home runs and 120 plate appearances. A monster 369 ISO so far. 20.5% barrels, 47.4% hard hits. The barrel rate is especially interesting. Strikes out a lot, but when he makes contact, he's been crushing the ball. Sal Perez, down season overall, 21 home runs. It's still good output for power in 530 catcher plate appearances, but down season, it's the second one in a row where he's been around that level. Hit 23 last year, but was just better overall last year. Hit for more average, got on base a little bit more, had a 108 WRC plus versus an 82 this year. That's a big, big dip in run creation. Obviously, it was way better the year before with 48 home runs and a 271 ISO. Still power in that bat, still a play anytime you play the Royals kind of an option. Typically hits third in the lineup. You get him at catcher or first base on the DK slate, which is valuable. Although there's no catcher conflict in this lineup today. MJ, I guess, no catcher eligibility for MJ on DK. You've got it on FanDuel where you don't need it. Edward Olivares, a playable part, 2,800, 2,600. Very, very cheap. For a kid who makes okay contact, 260, 310, 447, can steal you a base, can hit you a home run, creating runs at exactly league average over 329 plate appearances. Not a bad option when you're stacking up Royals here. Michael Garcia in the leadoff spot gives you direct correlated scoring with these guys. Interesting enough option, 274, 322, 372, 15% worse than average creating runs. If he gets on, he can run though. Little bit of ability to hit home run, but really you're looking for him to get on, steal a base in front of Bobby Witt, score the run when Bobby Witt hits your home run. They're an okay option. Bottom of the lineup, Nick Pratto back in our lives. 42.8% hard hits, 9.2% barrels, 302 plate appearances, 7 home runs, 12% worse than average creating runs. Not great, but interesting ability to connect when he does from the left side of the plate for 2,700, 2,300 today. First base on DK, outfield and first base on FanDuel makes him a little bit more interesting. Nick Lofton, 348, 444, 609 in his 27 plate appearances, 183 WRC plus. Playable part, playable mix in, making very, very good contact in the tiny sample so far. Dylan Cease, but then the Royals bats, and then Brady Singer, and then the White Sox bats way down there. I don't know how great an option Singer is. Much better at 75 on DK. I do think he's in that pool of pitchers. 82 on FanDuel just probably makes the line for a few value darts. Just because the White Sox have been so bad. He projects out okay. Athletics and the Astros. Framber Valdez. Framber. So he seems like he's gotten over the hiccups with the home runs. 3 straight without allowing a home run after 3 games where he allowed a total of, I think, 5. So hit just some weird bumps there. But overall, he's one of my favorite options on the slate. One of the most highly projected pitchers on the slate. One of your better options to go deep. It was 3 games he allowed 2 home runs, and 1 home run. Last time out, only struck out 4, walked 4, 1 earned run on 6 hits against Texas. Kind of a weird DFS start, but not a tragic start, just not enough strikeouts, too many walks. 5 strikeouts, 2 earned runs, but 4 runs total on 5 hits in 6 at Boston the start before that. 6 strikeouts, but 5 walks in that 7 no-hit innings against Detroit at Detroit. So weird output for walks lately with Framber. On the season, 6.6% walks, but has, a little bit, is scuffled a little bit in terms of that. But as long as he's not giving up the home runs, as long as he's back to being fairly low scoring against with a decent strikeout ceiling, going up against the Oakland Athletics as a lefty, you got to like the spot for Framber. 174 2/3 in 27 starts, pitches deep into ball games, one of your better shots on the entire slate to book a win, to book a quality start. So 9,800, 10-8. I think you fire away with shares of Framber. You ignore any hiccups recently. 3.9 degree average launch angle on the season. Only 2.26% home runs on the season. You ignore the hard hits. You ignore the exit velo because it's mostly on the ground. Push the strikeouts back up from... now we're hovering around the same level now. It had been a little higher. But just a very good pitcher. I like owning shares of Framber against the Athletics. On the other side, Mason Miller... This is a 4-inning projection. He's a very good young pitcher. Hurt his elbow earlier in the season. Looked like he was going to end up with a UCL and going for Tommy John. There might be one in there, who knows? But right now they're saying he's healthy, that it was actually just elbow inflammation. He pitched a effective bullpen. 2 innings out of the pen the other day. We were thinking that he might see innings in bulk relief over the weekend. 2 innings from the pen, 3 strikeouts against 6 Blue Jays hitters in his return to action the other day. 76 across sites. I don't think he's in play. Not against the Astros. Not with like a 3-4 inning limitation. I just want to point out that he is a very, very good pitcher. So 3 innings of quality aren't completely out of the question. If you had him at like 55 on DK, I would be saying that he might be an option even with only 3-4 innings. 27.5% strikeout rate, just filthy stuff. But just too limited tonight. And going up against one of the better lineups in all of baseball, not a great option. Jose Altuve off the top for the Astros. Definitely a very good play anytime you're going to Astros stacks. Houston, though, ranked way low in terms of their fantasy point projections. We got a pretty weak bottom end with Martin Maldonado. Brantley wasn't projecting well for odd reasons, just because it's the lack of sample probably. But he's very, very good. And then Jose Abreu doesn't project out very well. So a couple guys dragging down the average amongst some of the absolute stars. Pena isn't a great projection either, even hitting second. But you've got star. If these guys are A pluses, Bregman is a solid A minus, B plus, somewhere around there. Brantley on talent is, call it a B. Chas McCormick, an up and coming B plus. A lot of options here. Jose Abreu, a struggling former A. A lot of options through the Astros lineup. Jeremy Pena, 96 WRC plus, 10 homers, 11 steals. I think you can roster him at shortstop just for a little salary relief and for the position in the lineup. but he hasn't been very good this season. Jordan Alvarez, one of the best players in baseball, 52.4% hard hits, 16.8% barrels, a monster number in the home run index today, 26 homers on the season, hitting ahead of Bregman, who's got 22 from the right side, and Tucker, who's got 26 from the left side, also has 28 stolen bases. All these guys create runs at elite levels. This team is really good. This lineup is outrageous. What else is here? Brantley, 4,100, 3,000 is a good source of value. I mean, 346, 357, 615, doing Michael Brantley things in his first 28 plate appearances. 2 home runs so far. He should project higher than whatever he's got there. McCormick, 20 home runs, 16 steals, and only 392 plate appearances. That's a good season in like 2/3 of a season. Actually, no, that's more like it's a little bit more than half a season. It's not 2/3. 144 WRC plus. Excellent option late in the lineup. Still cheap, too. 4,400, 3,500. Cheap on DK. Miller's a talented pitcher, but you're firing away with Astros anyway, and they're going to be facing the Athletics bullpen after this. A's kind of limited on their side, just by the fact that it's Fromber on the other side. I just don't expect much home run upside here, and that's really what you're hunting for when you go to this team. Ryan Noda is good at getting on base. Correlates directly with Brent Rooker, at least, in terms of power. Maybe Shea Langoliers with a little bit of a stretch. But his power's there. Zach Geloff kind of cooled a little bit, but 11 home runs, 10 steals, 138 WRC plus. Prices come down a little from the outrageous spot that they had it at, 5,000, 3,400 at second base. Just odd compared to whoever it was before that we were talking about at second base that wasn't Glaber for a lot cheaper. That's kind of weird. But Geloff has put together all his numbers in only 219 plate appearances. He's been very good so far. Aledmys Diaz hitting third, former Astro. Revenge. I don't really see an opportunity here for Aledmys Diaz. Just kind of a utility guy. Miscast as a 3-hitter. Jordan Diaz, been a little bit better. 10 home runs on the season. 95 WRC plus. Not a great option hitting fifth. Langoliers, 17 home runs. 186 ISO. Kind of a sneaky catcher play on any given slate. People don't love going to him. He's a free swinger, 28.4% strikeouts. He doesn't hit for average or do anything other than hit odd home runs. But I think for odd home runs, there's plenty in play. 2,700 for catcher is very cheap. Kevin Smith, Nick Allen, Esteury Ruiz, just kind of mix and match guys. Ruiz does have a ton of speed, 58 steals on the season, but only an 83 WRC plus. Framber Valdez, Astros bats. Really nothing on the Athletics side. I tend not to target Framber for even contrarian reasons or anything like that. He's just too good at capping power in most cases. And then Mason Miller's just not going to pitch enough, and he's facing the Athletics or the Astros. 518. Coors Field game. Apparently there's a little bit of rain in the area, but it didn't seem all that concerning. Monty Pritchett points out Brantley suddenly gives this lineup even more balance. Yeah, I think Brantley's a terrific player. I really like Michael Brantley. Just a really good bat-on-ball skill. Can drive the ball. Not a premium home run guy, but like drives the ball really well on line drive type trajectory. Excellent option to add back into that lineup, and it just makes him so deep, like you say. James Sarcone says playing the Mets in great weather is risky. It's also true. Brian Kazorian says it's hard to suck as bad as Josh Donaldson has this season. Nice to know it's befitting his personality. Yeah, I mean, he had that very public thing with Tim Anderson at third base where he says he wasn't. Who knows? But it seemed like he was getting a little bit racial with Tim Anderson at third base, and just is notorious for just being a jerk. People just don't like him. He's not a good clubhouse guy. I never really knew that before the Tim Anderson thing, and then he's obviously he was on the Yankees the last couple of years. I like his power. I wasn't thrilled that they got him on back end of the career, big contract, and the Yankees ultimately took him on so that they could acquire Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, which is just dumb. I never wanted Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. The tourist fans who boo the good power hitters and the guys who get on base like crazy love Isaiah Kiner-Falefa because he led the league in singles 3 years ago before they got him. But yeah, that's not the guy who's going to solve all the Yankees' problems. He's fine as a utility guy, whatever. But you don't acquire a $50 million Josh Donaldson contract so that you can get Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. You can find that guy. He's a dime a dozen. John D. Diaz. Not John D. Diaz. Fucking what's his name? Now I'm going off on a rant. Aledmys Diaz. Aledmys Diaz is a much better version of Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. They could have had him. without taking on Josh Donaldson, just as an example. Anyway, not to go on a rant. Do we have either of these? We probably do. Nope, not in yet. Coors Field, fire away with bats, particularly on the Cubby side. They're showing excellent power numbers. They're the top overall projected team on the board in terms of collective fantasy point projections. You're paying a premium for Cody Bellinger, but he's well worth it, 68.46. At least they kept him below Acuna level pricing when Acuna was in Coors, although Acuna's just at that price now just for any given slate. I think he homered again today. But Cody, 25 home runs, 20 stolen bases, a 142 WRC plus, 318, 361, 551. So happy to see it. Just total return to form for the former MVP finally. Honestly, for the Cubbies, I want him to come to the Yanks. Lefty, outfielder. Not going to have Jason Dominguez probably next year now, so grab me some Cody Bellinger. I don't mind that. As long as I can get a little lefty pop back into that Yankees lineup. But out of every other team, I would love to see him stay with the Cubs if he doesn't come sign with the Yankees. Fantastic return to form for him. Dansby Swanson, a little bit of a dip in terms of his overall quality, but he's up to 20 home runs. Still a shot at getting 25, probably settle in around 22. But he's just been a very good power hitting shortstop for years and just typically gets ignored. Heart of the Cubs lineup, 5,536. He'll be popular at Coors Field for sure, but just a guy you don't want to skip that often. Ian Happ, excellent on base skills, 357. Should be hitting up here, but Seiya Suzuki's kind of been rolling of late. He's up to 16 home runs, a 345 on base percentage. Either one of these guys, whichever one hits third is the higher priority, but either one of these guys in either spot or either of these spots, depending on how they drop the lineup, are definitely top priority options. Seiya Suzuki at only 4,200 on DK is a prime, ridiculous, absurd source of value. Whether he hits third, especially if he hits third, but whether he hits third, sixth, wherever he hits, that's stupid on DK. He's going to be ridiculously popular and well worth it. 276, 345, 467. If you couldn't tell, I hadn't noticed that before just then. 119 WRC plus, up to 16 homers, 47.6% hard hits in Coors Field, 23.3% strikeouts, 9.7%. It's just a good player in the heart of their lineup at 4,200. Nico, 6,100, 3,800. As overpriced as Nico typically is, he's even more overpriced, but it's Coors Field, so I kind of get it. 38 stolen bases on the season, only 339 on base, only a 101 WRC plus. For what he does on the base pass, for the fact that he hits 280, he should get on base more. He needs to walk more. 6.5% walks isn't good enough. Take more pitches, Nico. He needs to be getting on base. I mean, the strikeouts are great. 12.9% strikeouts. He does different things. He puts the ball in play a lot. He's got a good average supported by a good BABIP, but just not creating runs enough because he doesn't get on base quite enough to be truly worth these prices. 38 is okay on FanDuel. At least he's not over 4. 61 is very high on DK. But it's a Coors Field game. It's a guy who gets involved from time to time. But only 1% better than average creating runs despite his reputation. I would love to have Chris Morel leading off. 5,235. He'll get very, very popular if he's in that spot in the lineup. 21 home runs on the season. A 116 WRC plus. 248, 312, 497. For the bat flips alone, he's worth it. Talked about these guys. John Gomes, 3,700, 3,100, a little bit of power behind the plate, 9 home runs on the season, and 95 WRC plus, 145 ISO. Doesn't square the ball up that great this year. Only 19.2% strikeouts. Believable power from behind the plate. We've seen it before. 3,700, 3,100 at Coors Field. Nick Madrigal, 3,000, 2,800. More of a defender. 2 home runs, 10 steals, 85 WRC plus. If he's in the lineup, he's playable. It's Coors Field. Patrick Wisdom, if he's hiding in the lineup for 4,000, 3,200, with triple position eligibility on FanDuel for 3,200 at Coors Field, that's just bananas. 21 home runs, 298 ISO in 274 plate appearances. I do not care that he's hitting 198. I don't really care that he's only getting on at a 286 clip. Strikes out 37.2% of the time. Might put 5 zeros into your a 0 in your lineup 5 times. 10.2% walk rate. That's okay. Should be, if he could manage like 15%, it would be better for offsetting this. But just so much power. 19.7% barrels, 55.6% hard hits. He costs 4,000 at first base at Coors Field on DK. He costs 3,200 at first, third, or in the outfield on FanDuel. That is a top priority bet if he's in the lineup, anywhere in the lineup. Coors Field. If you get him at low ownership, so much the better because he's hitting late in the lineup. Ideally, you get him like up here, he'd be explosively popular up there. But that is this and this are dynamite prices. This is a dynamite price. This is a good price. Cubbies are too cheap. Rocky side of things, meh. Tovar, 15 home runs, 10 steals, 72 WRC plus. Priority in Charlie Blackmon off the top of the lineup. Even the lefty, I don't really care that much. 280, 371, 433 for Charlie, creating runs 6% better than average. Ryan McMahon, if he's in the lineup, probably won't be hitting there. Might drop him in the lineup, but probably they've been sitting him against lefties a lot lately. 5,000, 3,500, most of his 22 home runs have come against righties. He's much, much better against righties. Elias Diaz, 4,200, 3,200, 14 home runs, and 83 WRC plus. A playable part because it's Coors Field at the catcher spot. 4,200, 3,200. He's very, very cheap. Brendan Rodgers, 3,500, 2,900. Another guy, very, very cheap for it being Coors Field. Going up against a lefty. Dude's hit mid-teens home runs the last 2 years. 13 last year in 581, 15 the year before in 415. Not much to speak of at all so far in 114 plate appearances since he made it back to the lineup. Only 208, 263, 274, a 32 WRC plus. He's been bad, flat bad, but he's got talent and he's cheap and he's hitting most likely in the middle of the lineup against the lefty at Coors Field. Nolan Jones has been very good same-handed. He's been their best player overall. 15 homers, 13 steals, a 120 WRC plus, very good triple slash, excellent contact skills. He only cost 49 on DK. 4,000 on FanDuel is probably correct. 49 on DK, too cheap. Eleodis Montero, 33, 3,000. The idea of right-handed power, 6 home runs in 232 plate appearances isn't bad. Only a 159 to ISO, 72 WRC plus. It's Coors Field, he's cheap. Hunter Goodman, 4,000, 3,300. Been pretty good since coming up. 34 home runs across 2 levels of the minors this season. None in the show so far, but a 214 ISO supports the idea that there's power there. 40.6% hard hits. 23.9% strikeouts isn't too bad. 101 WRC plus so far. That's a very playable option at 4,000, 3,300. Catcher on FanDuel. First base outfield on DK. Brenton Doyle, cheap outfielder. Minor ability to accrue counting stats. Cubbies bats, Rockies bats, neither pitcher. I think we got some lineups here. Got the Mariners. Jerry Kelnick making his way back to the Mariners. Boost for them late in the season. So Reed Detmers is too cheap on both sites. He projects out really, really well, as you can see. Last time out, 5 strikeouts, 1 earned run, gave up 9 hits in 6 2/3 against the Orioles. Only 3 strikeouts, 3 walks, 2 earned runs on 4 hits in only 4 innings at the Phillies. A little bit up and down overall. Has had his moments, has had his clunkers through the course of the season. A 4.82 ERA, but a much better 4.34 xFIP. A 3.16% home run rate on 16.1 degrees of average launch. A little bit too much premium contact for that in terms of exit velocity and hard hits, but not necessarily in terms of barrels. So when the guys are hitting it really hard, they're not necessarily elevating enough. So it's okay. It's been okay for home runs. The Mariners are good at hitting home runs. They're good at hitting lefties. But I like the spot for Reed Detmers, given his strikeout acumen. 25.8% strikeout rate on the season. Joker's here. He loves it. 12.6% swinging strikes is very, very good. 25.8% strikeout rate is good. If he limits walks tonight, which I think he's got an opportunity to do, the Mariners can draw some walks for sure, but they've got a lot of high strikeout guys. So limit the walks, find a couple punch-outs. We're paying this off. 71, 78. He's cheap. That's a good option in my mind on both sides. I think you roster some Mariners hedge stacks against him. There's enough power there to support the idea that they get to him. They only rank 16th on the projection board, 17th on the home run board, though, where Detmers ranks as the 4th highest projected pitcher. For the money, I love the opportunity for Reed Detmers here. On the other side of this one, Gilbert, a little bit higher projected, it seemed, around the industry. Not that he's pulling a bad projection for me, but he was a little bit higher up relative to the other guys. It's more the relative projection. So maybe it's more that the other sites have some of the other guys that I kind of just let roam free into the high projections into the 40s. A lot of other sites, I think, cull those a little bit and keep them in the 30s. For some reason, people don't like projecting like big ceiling type performances, where I think that's important to do, and or it's at least it gives an important shape to the slate, where one of those guys is going to put up a big score today. So you need those indicators of where the premium guys are. If you project the entire top end kind of the same like some of the other sites do, I don't really get that. So I think that's the case with some of them. Gilbert projects out really well, but for the money, competitively relative to those other guys, he's kind of more an also-ran here. Going up against an Angels lineup that's got plenty of strikeouts for him, it's believable that he could spike a big ceiling. And it's believable that he's one of the better options overall on the slate. 25.4% strikeouts, only walks 4.5% of opposing hitters, 3.61 ERA, 3.64 xFIP, giving up a decent amount of premium contact and power, though, against a team that does have it, even with Shohei out of the lineup, even with no Mike Trout. There is still some power in that Angels lineup. So I don't know that Logan Gilbert is entirely safe. I feel like he'll pick up a little bit of popularity. 92 is a fair price to pay for him on DK. I'd be more interested in him on DK. 10-2 on FanDuel, I would have some. But relative to the other pitchers on the slate, I'm not as over the moon about Logan Gilbert. Relative to where I've had him in other spots on other slates this season, I'm not as into the Logan Gilbert play for that price on FanDuel in today's terms. I do think I would have some, 10-15 shares, something like that as like a mixer. If he's projected for really low ownership, then I think you can increase it. But I'm much more interested in the value play on the mound on the other side. I think you can roster a few Angels bats. It's obviously not an ideal version of the lineup, but there's talent in Randall Grichuk, Brandon Drury, a couple of good righty power bats, 14 home runs, 20 home runs in 408 and 447 plate appearances, a 189 and a 217 ISO, at or around the league average creating runs or above. A lot of these guys below average for run creation, basically everybody except for Brandon Drury in the projected version of the lineup. But you've got Moose, 3,600, little bit of pop from the left side, 2,500 on the FanDuel slate, plays first and third on FanDuel, 12 home runs on the season. Logan O'Hoppe, 8 home runs, a 235 ISO, missed most of the season, only 130 plate appearances, but given the power that's, seems pretty realistic, 12.9% barrels, 47.3% hard hits in his limited sample. We're talking about a kid who, had he had an opportunity, probably, and he had the opportunity, he got injured, probably would be hovering in the 20 home run range in a full season. Pretty good power bat. Cheap at catcher too, 3,400, 2,700, especially if he's hitting cleanup or up toward the top of the lineup. That's a good spot. Matt Days, decent contact from the left side, 10.6% barrels, 41.1% hard hits, 9 home runs and 300 plate appearances, only a 129 ISO, below average creating runs. Eduardo Escobar, down season for sure for the veteran. Only 4.3% barrels, 6 home runs, a 137 ISO. Got himself traded out of Queens. Managed to cling to the roster after they purged the roster of all those guys. For some reason, Eduardo Escobar still here. I guess he's really cheap, maybe? I don't know. or did they waive him and he just cleared waivers and ended up back on the roster after they opened some spots? I'm not sure. Jordan Adams, Brett Phillips, Kyron Paris. Fairly limited bottom end. 2,000 for Jordan Adams, 200, 190, 200 so far, -5 WRC plus in his 21 plate appearances. Brett Phillips, way post type guy, hasn't really done anything so far in his opportunity in 33 plate appearances this year. Does have a home run, 3 steals. Playable part, I guess, from the bottom of the lineup if you happen to be stacking Angels and you do it like 25 times for some reason. Then I think these guys work their way into a few of your lineups because they're very, very cheap. Overall, the Angels lineup is very cheap. Mariners are the much better lineup, much better for DFS, much better for real life. JP Crawford, very good on base percentage, 381 on base, ties directly into their power. Julio, up to 6,600, 4,500. That casts the Seiya Suzuki price. Julio at 6,600, obviously the better of the two players, but 6,600 playing in Seattle, which is not overly hitter friendly, versus that 4,000 whatever price for Seiya Suzuki hitting third in Coors Field. Silly. 283, 339, 495, 29 homers, 36 steals. What a season. What a 2 months of a season from Julio. 11.5% barrels, 52.5% hard hits, 130 WRC plus, 212 ISO. All of a sudden, everything clicked right directly into this basically is improving upon last season or around equivalent to at this point. He's so good. Worth the money for sure in the Mariners outfield. In a stack that I think we should get to. Even though I like the Detmer side, I think you want to get to some Mariners bats here. Teoscar, all his power, 4,400, 3,200. For a guy with a 14.6% barrel rate, a 49.2% hard hit rate, on contact alone, Teoscar should be more expensive than he is. He's got 25 home runs. He's got a 193 ISO, a 113 WRC+, 269, 314, 462. I don't get why he's so inexpensive. Is it because he strikes out 30.4% of the time? Could be, but who cares? Cal Raleigh, same thing. Premium contact, high strikeout rate, 27 homers, 237 ISO. Too cheap on both sites where you need catchers. He's a prime value. Junior Suarez, 4,300, 2,900. Makes great contact. He's scuffled along through the season. Only a 101 WRC plus this year. Only a 154 ISO. Does have 19 home runs in 614 plate appearances. Plays every damn day. Righty power bat. I like the opportunity for Eugenio. 5.70 in the home run model against a guy who hasn't been allowing tons and tons of home runs this year. It's all right. Ty France, mix and match option, 39-29 at first base, 10 home runs on the season, a 103 WRC+. plus. Jared Kelenic, buried at the bottom of the lineup, coming back. I don't know if he played over the weekend, but it's the first time I remember seeing him recently. 11 homers, 12 steals in 362. Had that great outburst at the beginning of the season, looking like he fully arrived, and then cooled dramatically, but still an interesting left-handed power bat. Interesting that he's in the lineup. Still a great amount of contact, 3,600, 2,900. Dylan Moore, Sam Haggerty, playable parts. Very, very cheap triple position eligibility on the FanDuel slate, dual position on DK. Dylan Moore, 7 home runs, a 118 WRC plus on the season and 128 plate appearances. So, Reed Detmers, Logan Gilbert, Mariners bats, all three of those are good options. And then Angels bats, just kind of like a value mixer. Definitely some very cheap bats on that one. So I think you can extract some value options from the Angels. They rank 9th by projected fantasy points, 5th by FanDuel points per dollar, 3rd by DK points per dollar. So given where they rank on the board, I should actually have the Angels above, but I don't. I don't believe that. Guardians, Giants. Couple of good pitchers going in this one. Alex Cobb, limited in terms of strikeouts. 3 strikeouts, and gave up 2 home runs, 2 odd home runs against the Padres the last time out. 6 hits, 4 earned runs. The time before that, near no-hitter. 8 strikeouts, 1 walk, 1 earned run on 1 hit versus 30 Reds hitters. Went the full 9. Excellent game. I think it was 1 out in the 9th when he gave up the hit. Ended up giving up a run. But that was an absolutely excellent gem of a game. He's got upside for clean innings, but less so for strikeouts. I don't think he approaches that strikeout total against this low strikeout Guardians club. But clean innings are definitely on the board for him against the Guardians here. He's that kind of a pitcher. 1.2 degree average launch angle, 2.94% home run rate. The odd 2 home run game the last time out. And we see that a lot where guys go 9 and have a near no-hitter and then kind of have a clunker in the next start. Alex Cobb, though, veteran guy, I expect a total return to form for only 78.86. It's a pretty good value price going up against the Guardians. The strikeouts, I don't really mind the lack of strikeouts because that's not really where I'm going to Alex Cobb for these prices. I just want the clean innings. I want the shot at a win. So I like that option. He projects out fairly well. 3.74 ERA, a 3.44 xFIP on the season, only walks 5.7%, and just the ability to limit power overall. Not that there's a lot of power to really worry about in this Guardians lineup anyway. Jose Ramirez is a very good overall hitter, 22 home runs this year, 203 ISO, lots and lots of power most of the time. Bit of a dip overall in quality this year. Josh Naylor's got tons of power and a very good triple slash in his 416 plate appearances, 16 homers, a 194 ISO, only 40.9% hard hits, 8.5% barrels. No double-digit barrel rates. Only Naylor and Gabe Arias over 40% hard hits in this lineup. It's a non-threatening power lineup. They're okay at getting on base. They're okay at sequencing on the right night. They put the ball in play a ton with all these low strikeout rates. But overall, the Guardians, I think it's a good matchup for Alex Cobb. Steven Kwan, 10.3% strikeouts. Ramirez, 10.5. Josh Naylor, 13.9. That's spectacular. Decent walk rates. Okay on base percentage. These are good on base percentages. Okay is unfair. But for Steven Kwan, like I've talked about all year, that needs to be in the 370s for him to have any kind of value. Similar to, see, this is what I'm talking about with Nico. Steven Kwan's essentially the same guy. 101 WRC plus is exactly the same WRC plus. Kwan's an outfielder, Nico's an infielder, so he gains a little bit of value by virtue of playing second base, but not for the price discrepancy they've been at all season. They both steal bases. They're both getting on in like the 340s. Last year, Steven Kwan was the better of the two. 373 on base, 124 WRC plus, the same 19 stolen bases. 298, 373, 400. Nico should be priced at like Steven Kwan level. That's why I'm constantly harping on the fact that Nico is a little bit too high priced. At Coors Field today, obviously, he should be higher. But Nico Horner is really, a version of Steven Kwan that plays second base. Ramon Laureano, miscast as a cleanup man. 3,300, 2,600. 8 home runs on the season, a 144 ISO, 84 WRC+. Even in previous years, 14 homers in 378 2 years ago, 13 homers in 383 last year. This is the best guy that can find a stick in the cleanup spot. Cole Calhoun, meh, lefty. The memory of power, if nothing else, from Calhoun, a 157 ISO this year in 123 plate appearances. Andres Jimenez, mix and match option, 12 home runs, 26 steals. Hasn't been what we expected. Gabe Arias does have power, 2,500, 2,100, still triple position eligible on FanDuel for the very cheap price. 9 home runs in 306 plate appearances, 44.1% hard hits, strikes out a ton at 32.4%. Brennan and Bo Naylor, kind of mix and match options. Bo for cheap catcher power, I think, is in play. 8 home runs, 3,100. He's fine to stick into Guardian stacks. Priority Guardians would be here. These two and Bo Naylor. If I'm making a DraftKings lineup, that's probably my Guardian stack. Not a great option. Gav Williams, competitively priced, projects fairly well. He left. Where is he? Left to start 2 starts ago with knee soreness. Only went 1 inning, came out, so that was a little bit of a disaster for DFS purposes. Last time out went 5, struck out 4, walked 4, gave up 1 earned run, 1 hit to 20 Twins hitters. So a reasonably good start there. We've seen upside from him, and he's a very highly regarded kid. 24.4% strikeout rate in 70 innings of 14 starts this year, a 3.34 ERA, a 4.44 xFIP, 12.5% swinging, only a 2.37% home run rate on only 4.8% barrels. He's been spectacular at missing premium contact. Below 88 miles an hour of exit velo on average is very, very good. Going up against a pretty free swinging Giants lineup, they've got a little bit of lefty power. Yaz is a concern. Jock's a concern. Wilmer's always a concern. Thairo Estrada, pretty good bat-to-ball skills. Decent mid-range power, good stolen base option. It's not a totally safe matchup. There's a lot of talent on the Giants roster, but he's a really high-end kid, and for the money, I think it's worth going to. Good mid-range value play at 8 on DK. Very good value dart at 72 on the FanDuel slate. We need him to get 6. We need him to find some strikeouts. I think he's got upside to do both. You can grab some Giants bats against him. You grab Yaz's power, 10.4% barrels, 47% hard hits from the left side. Decent home run marks for most of the lefties. 13 homers on the season for Yaz, a 221 ISO in 319 plate appearances. He's very cheap for the opportunity as well. Thairo, 4,300, 3,100, multi-position eligible on the FanDuel slate. 12 homers, 20 steals, a 105 WRC plus and 451. Wilmer's got 22 home runs to lead the team in 402 plate appearances. Nice little tidy season for Wilmer. 285, 351, 529, a 244 ISO, 139 WRC plus. Good little season for him. Jock, tons of lefty power, 52.5% hard hits, 12.2% barrels. Very cheap for Jock Peterson, 4,100, 2,600. That's a good value option, if nothing else. Gav, for as good as he is, as much as he's limiting power, it's the right side. It's the strong side of platoon splits for Jock. So I think you can grab a few shares of the Giants, a few shares of Jock Peterson for sure. Add Mitch Haniger into that mix. Premium power bat from the right side, 11.3% barrels, 46% hard hits this season so far, and only 188 plate appearances. Tremendous power 2 years ago, 39 home runs in however many plate appearances it was. Lamont Wade, another sneaky lefty. We might see Wade in the leadoff spot given his skills at getting on base. Earlier in the season, he was above 400. Now he's down to 371. He's kind of cooled overall, but still one of the better options to get on base, correlate with the other guys. Only cost 3,400, 2,600 at first base across sites. J.D. Davis also is cooled, 3,500, 2,500, 17 homers, a little bit of right-handed power for sure. Brandon Crawford, Joey Bart, kind of mix and match parts from the late part of the lineup. Alex Cobb, Gav Williams, Giants bats. No real love for the Guardians bats. Last game on deck, 5:45. We did it, gang. I'll have football show starts up in about an hour. Excuse me, but it seems like I'll have a quick little half-hour break. Oh, by the way, it's absolutely pouring in Jersey City. I just looked up and realized that it had gotten completely dark outside in the last little bit, and it is pouring right now. If I had to leave now, which is about when I would be leaving if I was going to this Mets game in Queens, I would probably be punching out. I don't think I would be going to this game. Definitely concerns about this game right now. Jake Swales, his grandpa, is 93 with a full head of hair and a crispy-ass hairline. Thank the Lord. Lucky guy. Lucky guy. I wear hats. Not a lot of well-coiffed men late in their lives in my family. I don't know about my mom's side of the family. Bunch of Cuban dudes with full heads of hair, maybe. Not really sure. My uncle, her brother, has more of his hair than my dad does, or any of my uncles on my dad's side. I take more after the McBride side of that. It's thinning out for sure. Yeah, Greg, they do say that, but I don't know. It's not great. There's a reason I wear hats, like I said. Although I've worn hats my entire life. Like if you averaged out hat, no hat across my entire life and you included every single day of my life, we would be firmly on hat. Yes. It's always been Jake Swales has a Cuban half of the family too. Hey, all right, buddy. Got some black beans and rice sometime. I love a good Cuban meal. That's our tradition in my family every Christmas Eve. Noche Buena. We do a massive Cuban meal. It's the one time a year that my mom made her Cuban food all growing up, and it's like you could cook this like once a week if you wanted, you know. Like it's so good. But like roast pork, the black beans and rice, tostones. For years and years, my mom made yuca, right? And she did like my grandma's recipe. It was just like straight up just boiled yuca, and nobody really liked it. And then through going to Cuban restaurants and everything, there's a spectacular Cuban restaurant in Hoboken. I got introduced to fried yuca, and I was like, oh my God, this is really, really good. So we started making it that way, and now everybody loves the yuca. Roast pork, roast vieja picadillo, love it. Ropa vieja, definitely. If you happen to find yourself in Hoboken, New Jersey, La Isla is a fantastic Cuban restaurant. Tiny little lunch counter type place. Spectacular entrees, like everything we're talking about in the chat there, everything I just mentioned, and then just like some of the best Cuban sandwiches I've ever had in my life. If you like just a nice crisp cubano, the pressed pork sandwiches, whoa, so good. Yeah, Greg nailed it. So much good Cuban food in the area. Union City, West New York. Yeah, Union City, West New York. This Jersey City area has the highest concentration of Cuban people outside of Havana in the entire world, which is just bananas. I mean, obviously, then most of Cuba, all of Cuba. But yeah, outside of Cuba, this is the highest concentrated, or outside of Miami as well. I'm pretty sure it's below Miami. Maybe not on a per capita, but a lot of them here. A lot of us here. Favorite's difficult to decide, Greg. I don't know. I love everything. I really do. I couldn't tell you. I could just go easy and just say the black beans and rice, which is just like my grandma's recipes. So good. Anyway, let's talk through this last game. What do you think? Pedro Avila, Gavin Stone. Don't really see it on either side for the pitching. Avila. Gav Stone will start there. 6 innings, 2 strikeouts, 4 earned runs, gave up 3 home runs and 5 hits in 6 innings in his return to action against Boston on the 27th. He's a highly regarded kid. In 100 innings, 102 innings and 19 starts at AAA this year, he did have a 27.8% strikeout rate, but he had a 4.74 ERA, 4.82 xFIP in the same sample. Struck out 27.8, but walked 10.7. He's very cheap. He's going up against a tough Padres team. You do like that he got 6 innings in that return to the show the other day against the Red Sox at Fenway Park in a tough matchup. So given that, it wasn't a good performance though. Given the idea that he's getting 6, I guess if you wanted to throw Dodgers darts at him, if you're a Dodgers fan or something like that, then maybe. But it doesn't look like a good option DFS-wise to me. Avila on the other side, 6 2/3 the last time out, 1 strikeout and walked 6. No earned runs on 2 hits against the Phillies. Really weird outing. 5 strikeouts in 3 innings versus San Francisco. The start before that, 4 strikeouts, but 5 earned runs in 4 1/3 the time before that. We kind of were talking about him for some potential for strikeouts in that weird start, and he went out and walked 1 or struck out 1 and walked 6, but was okay in that he didn't give up any runs and only 2 hits against the Phillies. I think we could get an okay performance out of him. 23.8% strikeouts, 2.19 ERA, has 1 home run in his 37 innings. a 3.85 xFIP. Like, he's not been bad. He misses barrels. He strikes guys out, but he walks way too many, and he's going up against the Dodgers. I just wouldn't want to do it, right? If I was playing this slate, I would just punt on that spot. If Pedro Avila goes out and beats you because he costs 6,000 and somebody bought another bat, it just take the loss. I don't think we need to go to Avila against the Dodgers here. So we're just looking at bats. Ha-Seong Kim off the top. One of the top positional wars, wins above replacement in all of baseball at his position. He's been spectacular for DFS. 120 WRC plus, 17 homers, 34 steals. Gets on base at a great clip. Second and third on DK for 48. Fairly priced multi-position. 32 is cheap on FanDuel for 3 positions. Love the option. A key part of Padres stacks. If you're stacking pods, you don't skip Ha-Seong Kim. Fernando Tatis, Juan Soto, 2 spectacular power bats in the top part of the lineup. 23 home runs, 25 steals for Tatis. 114 WRC plus, 12.31 in the home run model. Juan Soto, 12.6% barrels, 55.4% hard hits, and 11 in the home run model. 19.1% strikeouts and 18.9% walks. Fantastic hitter. 28 home runs, 8 steals, a 144 WRC plus. Manny Machado, 51.35. Little cheap still on DK. FanDuel, at best, is a fair price, probably a little cheap. 26 home runs, 198 ISO. He's been not quite the old version of Manny Machado, but the power's still there. Xander Bogaerts, 269, 339, 416. Here we go. We're on a downswing again. Every time he cracks 270, it seems like he swings back and goes back down to the low 260s over the following week. We haven't had that good second week to get him back to 275, 280 range in terms of the average. But overall, 17 homers, 15 steals, still creating runs, 12% better than average. Still Xander Bogaerts under the covers, 4,700, 3,000, cheap shortstop. Camposano, pretty good at the catcher spot, 2,900, 2,500, 301, 341, 463, 23% better than average creating runs. Not a bad option at catcher. If you get Gary in there, tons of power. Jerks and Profar, Matthew Batten, meh. Trent Grisham, 2,800, 2,600, at least makes very good contact. Like, oddly elite contact for a guy who hits 9th every day. Has 13 home runs, 14 steals, just saw a bunch of lightning outside. Not a good sign for the Mets. There's the Thunder. 94 WRC plus over 512 plate appearances. He's very cheap. He's not an ideal wraparound because you're not really looking to him for on-base skills. You're looking more for odd power. But you don't really want, like, these guys and then have them, or, well, Bogey you do. You don't really want, like, a stack of this. So Grisham's just in a weird spot. If he happened to hit, like, 6th, I think he'd have more value. Dodger side, elite. Both of these guys are also positional war leaders for the season. Ridiculous value for them. 173 WRC plus for Mookie. 66% better than average creating runs for Freddie. Freddie's got 25 homers, 18 steals. Mookie's got 38 and 11. They're 2 of the very best players in all of baseball. They don't strike out at all. Absurdly good strikeout and walk rates for the top 3 hitters, Will Smith included, 5,500 for him. He's not a $5,500 pitcher on FanDuel. As you guys know, I think at this point, I always forget to take out that stupid relief pitcher when I'm putting this together, but it doesn't matter for the numbers. 17 homers, 123 WRC plus. He's a spectacular catcher option. Max Muncy, 4,900, 3,400. A 19.85 in tonight's home run model. I buried the power, by the way, in this one. Tons and tons of power showing through this. It should have been the first thing I talked about. 3 guys over the magic number in the home run model on the pod side of things. 4 guys, and they're obliterating the magic number on the Dodger side of things. Yet another reason not to play Pedro Avila. Muncy, 19.8. JD, the overall home run pick of the day at 18.4. 26 homers for Just Dingers Martinez. Somebody said that on one of the baseball broadcasts the other day. I liked it. 295 ISO, 129 WRC plus. David Peralta, Jason Hayward, James Outman, assuming they're in the lineup. The 3 lefties that we like for their value pricing, their ability to hit the baseball pretty well for these cheap prices from the left side of the plate. They all fill the outfield at a variety of prices. I think you just go one, combine them. Just mix and match those guys. Any one of these 3 guys with any of these 4 guys, 5 guys. Totally viable Dodgers stack. 19 homers and 15 steals for Outman, 14 homers and a 127 WRC plus with a 213 ISO for Hayward in 319 plate appearances. And then Peralta, a decent hit tool, only 90 WRC plus, 374 plate appearances, but an effective enough option given where he's priced and given where he lands in the lineup. Miguel Rojas giving you very little at the bottom of the lineup. 66 WRC plus, 3 homers, 8 steals. Not great. Mama says, does anybody see upside in Bassett today? complete game shutout. That's one way to go. Complete game, probably better upside than the complete game shutout. We have to go to here on the board to find them. But yes, to answer your question, I do see an upside for Chris Bassitt, just given that he's Chris Bassitt, given that he's a talented pitcher who has been pitching technically better than I think most people think throughout most of the season. A lot of the numbers were skewed by a couple just really bad starts. When he's been bad, he's been really bad. When he's been just average, he's been fairly good. And he works 7 innings a lot. You've got upside to the complete game for sure. If I had somebody gun to my head just said, hey, who's going to pitch a complete game today? And don't worry about the outcome. Like we won't take him out if he's pitching poorly, but we'll take him out like if he gets tired or he gets injured or whatever. If you even that aspect of it out, Chris Bassitt's your best choice. Fromber's right there as well. They're like 1-1A, but Bassitt, 8 the last 2, multiple starts of 6 innings, multiple 8-inning starts, several 7-inning starts, a 9-inning start throughout his game log. One of the, let's see the league lead pitching board. Bassitt is 12th in innings pitched among qualified starters, and he's got 1 fewer start than the guys who are leading the board. Fromber is 10th, and he's made only 27 starts. So at the top of the board is Logan Webb with 193 innings in 30 starts, and then it goes Zach Gallen, Garrett Cole. They've both made 30 starts, 187 innings apiece. Then it's Sandy at 184 innings and only 28 starts. But Fromber is right there, 174 in only 27, and Bassitt. So those are your top 2 options if you're just if you're just complete game hunting. But yes, given all that, given the potential for depth, I do think that Bassitt's on the board a little better than he projects in my model here. And for what you're hunting for, what you're asking him about there, Mamba, I definitely think he's on the board. Yuca sauteed in garlic is unreal. Absolutely, Greg. The fried yuca, do it up with some garlic, some mojito. Oh, awesome. Making me hungry. Oh, you went to Havana? That's awesome. Jake Swales went. I haven't been. Been talking to my mom about trying to get down there. She's been talking about it her whole life going back. She was born and raised there. She hasn't been back since they left pre-Castro. But would love to get back. She has it's a little dark, but when my grandma died when I was like 12, we had her cremated, and the idea was, eventually go back and spread her ashes in Cuba. And she's sitting in a shoebox, not a shoebox, but you get it, at the top of my mom's closet for the last like 30 years. I don't think she wanted to spend eternity in the closet, Ma. My mom has spent her entire life worrying that if we all went there as like a family or whatever, her brother, my uncle, who's now well into his 60s, if not 70, would be drafted into the Cuban army. I don't think they want him. So we'll get down there eventually. That's my goal. I'm going to drag them all kicking and screaming. Pitching board, Tyler Glasnow with a bullet at the top. Brandon Woodruff, Framber Valdez, right there with them. They're all appropriately priced. One of those 3 guys is one of your most likely contributors at the top of the board. But we've got great projections. This is a really deep pitching slate. I think going down the board, Reed Detmers is a fantastic value on both sites. Take Reed Detmers and pair him with one of those top 3 guys on DK. I love your pairing no matter who it is. You can do the same thing going down the board, though. Reed Detmers as a value guy, as a value SP2, and Jesus Luzardo. Reed Detmers and Logan Gilbert is a great pairing. Reed Detmers and Alex Cobb. You can go Reed Detmers, Alex Cobb for 71 and 78 and go out there and win yourself a slate. That's a great pairing. Saves you a ton of money. Those guys have SP1 upside in their matchups on any given slate for sure. They could both lose. They could both get tattooed tonight. But there's plenty of upside, plenty of value there. Dylan Cease against the Royals. Mixed bag of quality throughout the year, but he's appropriately priced for it. He projects out pretty well. There are enough strikeouts to support the idea. Sonny Gray's been very good all year. Tough matchup against Tampa, but 98-88. He's appropriately priced. Quintana, I probably would go away from that Mets game at this point. Pouring thunderstorm right now in Jersey City. We've got an hour and change before game time, so maybe, but doesn't look great right now. Gav Williams, good projection against the high strikeout San Francisco squad. We want 6 innings out of him, though. That's the key with Gav. Brady Singer, good matchup against those White Sox. Definitely cheap, projects out well enough. Projects out as a value play. I would skip Mason Miller just because I don't think he's getting innings. That's a 4-inning projection. I believe in the projection, but I don't think he's going beyond 4 innings. Probably only getting 3. Chris Bassett, like we just talked about, playable. Dane Dunning, playable from the other side of that same game if you want him. Schmidt, Avila, the guys below Dane Dunning, I don't think I play. You got the Coors guys in there. Gav Stone, I do think is talented, but I just don't like the spot. So I don't think I would throw that value dart. Clark Schmidt, if you wanted to roster Clark Schmidt for 66 on DK to round the show off, to bookend the show, I think it's fine. Zach Davies, I don't think I would do at this point given the rain with the 5,200 and not a good pitcher. But there's just so much value up the board, like Detmers, like Alex Cobb, like even the guys in the 8s in Jesus Luzardo. 8.5 for Jesus Luzardo is a great price. 8.3 is a very playable price for Dylan Cease. There's a lot of value plays. There's a lot really big, beefy mid-range today. And then a very tall top end. Like the pitching slate, gang. I almost kind of want to drop a one entry into DraftKings. Just make like a $10 or $15 deposit and drop an entry into DraftKings so I can build out that Detmers Alex Cobb lineup just for the fun of it. Royals White Sox postponed, says James Sarcone. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate that. So that takes Dylan Cease off the board, takes Brady Singer off the board. Less relevant for bats, but definitely we lose a interesting mid-range option in Dylan Cease and a less interesting mid-range option in Brady Singer. I would not be surprised to see the Mets go PPD as well, which would take Jose Quintana out of play. Zach Davies to a much lesser extent. So we lost a little bit of that fat mid-board that I just mentioned, but I still love this upper end. All those guys, these guys. That's like if somebody said you can take 8 guys for your pitching pool, I think those would be my 8 guys. And you've got value there, you've got mid-range there, you've got ceiling peak guys there. Those are my 8 priority pitchers on this slate. All right, gang. Since I'm not playing, since I'm doing another show in 43 minutes, I'm going to go punch out. I will catch up to you in just a little bit. Come on back, same channel, same place, 6:45. A little while from now. Roth arguing the PPD, see what I mean? Is it PPD or delayed? There seems to be a bit of a question. Just pay attention. Either way, if it plays, I think the Dylan Cease is in play, as we talked about. But obviously, just don't play it if it's going to go if it's PPD. And if you're risk averse and it's delayed, don't play it. Simple as that, gang. All right, I'm going to punch out. Good luck tonight. I will see you in about 40 and change minutes for the NFL show for the Showdown slate. Somebody go win some. I'll see you later.